I'm gonna jump into the official review where you won't see my face. It'll be audio and I'll be showing pictures. But I just watched the greatest episode of television ever. I've seen Game of Thrones 10 fucking times, all the way through. I have never seen an episode of television this faithfully adapted from the source material and then expanding upon it. Somehow, they not only adapted the book, but faithfully, right? But then expanded upon it in a way that is so fucking meaningful. I've lost my mind. I've been running around the house like my kids are over at their grandma's house. My girlfriend took them over there, right? I've been running around my house screaming, "Woo!" for like 15 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating. Please slap a like on this if you enjoy my content. Also, please subscribe and have your notifications turned on. I'm gonna be live. I'm live right now on YouTube. But yeah, holy shit, let's jump right into it. Okay, so real quick, let's talk performances. I want you to see my face. Millie Alcock. Holy fuck. I had never heard of you until this show. And I guarantee you, this will make you a superstar. Her performance was amazing, right? So we start out, we've got several scenes that I want to address. There's going to be like 12 different scenes that I want to address in particular. But Millie Alcock's performance was fucking phenomenal. It's going to be insane to watch Emma Darcy take over that role. But I have all faith in this show. And I know it's going to be spectacular. Matt Smith, Prince Damon. He's literally the reason why I'm probably going to be wearing red and black for the rest of my YouTube life. Right? I can... so many scenes. Like, remember when he was fucking... Like that, y'all can't see me, but he had the hip game, he had the stroke game. I got that stroke game too. Okay, so before I really jump into it, I need to give a fair spoiler warning. The reason why I'm giving this spoiler warning is because, yes, we've both seen, we've all seen episode 1, but really, I feel like I've taken it a step further. Not only have I been listening to Fire and Blood over and over again, like I've literally listened to the entire thing 4 times, I've read it twice, right, so that's 6 times total, but also, I've followed every single one of the leaks. The entire time they've been filming part of this year, and really all of last year, I've been privy to that information. I've made videos on it. So, spoiler warning. Please slap a like and make sure you're subscribed. Not every video will be like this. Okay, so the show starts out with a voiceover from the actress who's playing the older version of Rhaenyra. Their name is Emma Darcy, and they explain to us that the Targaryens at this time, when Jaehaerys reigned for 60 years, had 10 dragons, and they were really at the height of their power when her father Viserys takes over. And then there's a 9-year time jump, and then bam, we see Rhaenyra flying the city. I love the way that the opening title thing said 173 years before the death of the Mad King and his birth, the birth of his daughter Daenerys, right? It just phased out all of that to 173 years before Daenerys. It's like it's so Ryan Condon, Miguel Sapochnik, whichever one of you maestros are responsible for that, you're fucking amazing, right? And then we have Daemon with the gold cloaks. Now this is going to be really interesting, right? So we had it explained in the episode from Viserys to Otto that pretty much every single appointment that Daemon was given in the small council and then taking over the gold cloaks was thanks to Sir Otto. It's all been by suggestion of him. So Daemon may not fit in at one place, like he was a tyrant when he was master of laws, and he would have stolen all the money when he was master of coin. And now as the gold cloaks, he's considered a ruthless, villainous asshole with 2,000 men under his control, according to Sir Otto. Viserys has kind of had it up to hear with him, and he's like, you know what, fuck off. And obviously later on at the end of the episode, we realize that Daemon has been exiled from King's Landing and sent back to the Vale. Obviously, that's not the case. Daemon introduces Mysaria, the White Worm, Misery, the White Worm. We're going to find out why she has that nickname later on this season. But he introduces her to Caraxes, who I will say has these cat eye, blue eyes. And then, oh man, this Caraxes, you look fucking amazing, bro. I'm probably going to get you tatted all up and down my arm. I'm going to be doing a dragon sleep. But yeah, according to the trailer, so this isn't really a spoiler, we all know that Daemon flies over the Dragonstone. And then we have that one scene that's been repeated over and over through all of these seasons teaser trailers is the showdown between him and Sir Otto, right? Sir Otto shows up right when Daemon's trying to steal the dragon egg with Mysaria, and then ultimately we see Rhaenyra and Syrax come and land in between them. It looks like she's probably going to be siding with her father, not allowing Daemon to escape, per se, with the dragon egg, right? Like, apparently, in the books, Daemon gives Mysaria a dragon egg, and she's able to escape with it she's able to escape away at sea, not with the dragon egg, obviously. And when she's out at sea, the ship is attacked by a storm, and then Mysaria loses her child, and this is sort of another thing that happens in between Daemon and Viserys. I'm not sure if they're going to go that route. Mysaria is very clearly not pregnant in these episodes when Daemon's trying to leave with her. And then, like, about halfway through the episode, holy shit, it's a tourney scene with Daemon and Gwaine Hightower, and we've gotten Kristen Cole and Daemon all facing off, and like it's all intermixed with the AnaaaRodarte birth scene. I just want to say that I've seen some crazy TV, right? I used to watch The Walking Dead. I've seen any show that is worth watching as far as like in the same vein of these things, so like, you know, fantasy dark TV shows like The Witcher. I have never seen anything quite as traumatic as this scene with AnaaaRodarte. Like, I knew she was going to die. I knew exactly what was going to go down. I just didn't know that they were going to do it this way. And this is one of those things that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that they've sort of added to the source material while still keeping in canon and expanding it to a way that it's awesome. It's not just a dumb way to show you that this is an adaptation and is different from the books. No, they've expanded upon the source material. The Maesters cut into AnaaaRodarte to do a cesarean and ended up killing her in the process. And I will say that the way that Grand Maester Mellos looks at Prince Balon, you know, according to Daemon, the heir for a day, I wouldn't be surprised if the Grand Maester conspiracy is more of a thing on this show and he's working hand in hand with Sir Otto. We see how he'll talk to Sir Otto before he even talks to the king at times, Grand Maester Mellos, right? So Grand Maester Mellos and Sir Otto are probably working together. I wouldn't be surprised if they killed Balon in order to make way for the king to marry Alicent, Sir Otto's daughter. That's a theory that I'm going to probably drop a video on. We all know in the books, the Maesters are responsible for the downfall of the dragons, and the main reason being is because they sort of agree with Viserys in that Targaryens and Valyrians should have never messed with dragons. There was a power that man couldn't control, and it's a fallacy to think that the Targaryens have any control over these nuclear weapons, right? So the Maesters wiped them out, something known as the tragedy at Summerhall, and also in the main book series right now, they may actually be working with the Faceless Men because they're at the Citadel and trying to learn, or more so, Shavepate just stole a key that has access to all of the doors in the Citadel, and the Faceless Men probably want to wipe out the dragons as well because they were founded by a city who was founded by former slaves of Valyria. So it's a giant chain of command. Like I said, it deserves its own video. My one complaint with the scene is that all of those hands inside of Emma, oh my God, that was hard to watch. Like, Jesus, I just watched my children being born, and it wasn't nearly as brutal as that. Oh my gosh, this was crazy. It went on a little bit too long is my one complaint. That's it. Then after Balon dies, but that was one of the things that I wanted to mention. I wouldn't be surprised if Grand Maester Mellos actually poisoned Balon. Like, he survived for a day, right? And then, you know, we have the scene with Daemon in how he rented out that whole brothel and basically gave the speech about, well, now I'm definitely the heir because the one son that the king had died, right? And Emma tells you she's had 5 pregnancies so far, and she's tired of mourning children. She keeps losing child, like, in the process, and she begs Viserys, this is the last time, right? And it's crazy because for the most part, you see Viserys, the first scene we see him in, he's eating an egg, right? So we're like, oh, this dude's laid back. He's laughing. He's smiling. The whole time at the tourney, his face is lit up. He's enjoying life. And then he chooses to murder his wife at not a guarantee that he'd be saving his son. Because Grand Maester Mellos literally says this process is like, we're just learning it at the Citadel, and like the amount of blood that basically he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He had just kind of heard about it, like Sam, when he removed the grayscale from Jorah Mormont, right? It's kind of just, they did it on a whim, and obviously it was pointless because Balon ended up dying. I wouldn't be surprised if Grand Maester Mellos actually poisoned Balon, Viserys' son Balon, Rhaenyra's little brother, the little baby that was burned at the funeral pile, and it may be revealed later on this season or in a later season. But that brings into the next thing I want to talk about is AnaaaRodarte being burned with Balon. Like, that scene where Rhaenyra had to tell Syrax to say Dracarys and burn her mother, it was gut-wrenching. On a side note, that was the second time we saw Daemon and Rhaenyra speak Valyrian to each other. Holy shit! That's exactly what I wanted. I said in my videos from 2 years ago, I was like, yo, I hope they use Valyrian in this show to get up on people. Like, they're around people who don't speak it, and that's their love language, right? That's exactly what they did for this show. Holy shit. I mean, obviously, anybody who's read the books would kind of want them to do that as well, but it's so fucking dope. Like I said, that is the most heart-wrenching Dracarys moment ever. And it's sort of in direct contrast when Daenerys uses Dracarys for the first time to have Drogon burn the Warlocks of Qarth and Pyat Pri at the House of the Undying. When Daenerys tells them to burn them on the TV show, this was like in direct contrast to that. Like, AnaaaRodarte, Rhaenyra's mother, is dying. Or she's already dead and she's now, it was so much more of a heart-wrenching moment in comparison with the moment of triumph with Daenerys on the TV show. Doesn't quite go down like that in the books, but ultimately Drogon does kind of save Daenerys from the House of the Undying. And then the next scene that I want to talk about, and this was we saw this in the trailer, right? The small council is worried about the succession of the throne because obviously Prince Daemon, Otto says he would be a second Maegor, and really that's his own political maneuverings. But no, the Daemon that we see on this TV show, at least the sides that we've seen so far, he would in fact be an agent of chaos, right? And then obviously he has an arc just like most people in this show. They do things like with Viserys, like I was saying earlier, he's a great character. He seems like this dude that would choose life because he's so happy with life over death, and then he ends up, killing his wife and holding on to her as she's dying. That was such a traumatic fucking scene to watch, and that's probably why it's so easy for him to get angry with Daemon right after that. But isn't it funny how Sir Otto basically pimped out his daughter? He's like, Alicent, wear the dress, wear your mother's dress, kind of thing. Like, go comfort the king. It's crazy. But I will say that Emily Carey is doing an amazing job so far portraying the younger version of Alicent. She's always got a book in her hands, and that's really important because in the books, Alicent used to read to the old King Jaehaerys, and that was sort of the last thing that happened. Jaehaerys lays down to go to bed, and Alicent's reading to him from Septon Barth's Unnatural History, which I hope is a book that's later brought up on the show. If you all watching this video are book fans, let me know if you think that would be something that could be brought up. Maybe they could address how dragons are male and female, or, the way that they actually lay eggs, right? Supposedly dragons can change their sex at will. And then after Daemon has the scene with Viserys, we see that Viserys ends up cutting his hand, and he's already cut earlier in the episode on his back. He's got this nasty oozing infection thing. Now, traditionally, when a ruler is cut by the Iron Throne, when they're spurned by it, that means they're cursed, and they're going to die on the Iron Throne. They'll never sort of just die of old age kind of thing, right? And it's very interesting, and I hope they make a point to say that about that being an old sort of saying or tradition about how Viserys keeps getting cut. They obviously will. That's why they are making a point to say it, but it's very important for later on in this series when Rhaenyra is also spurned by the Iron Throne. People say she's cursed by it as well, and that ultimately ties into her fate. And after the Air for a Day and, Viserys sending Daemon back to the Vale of Arryn, obviously Daemon doesn't do that. Like I said, he's going to go to Dragonstone. We're going to see that in episode 2. But we have the kneeling scene from the first trailer where Rhaenyra is officially named the king's heir. Now, one thing that did confuse me, and this is another small complaint, it's Rhaenyra is made the cupbearer because she knows she's going to be her father's heir. She's already the cupbearer before she becomes her father's heir. It's just a small thing that they switched around for the TV show, probably to make it more streamlined since they're not going to be having, at least so far from what we've seen, an even younger actress playing an even younger version of Rhaenyra. That may be the case if they do the Corlys the Sea Snake spinoff, but for right now, I think Millie Alcock is the only actress who's playing the younger version of Rhaenyra. And those who paid attention to detail, if you notice, the Baratheon bastard, Boromir, the guy who got embarrassed Right after talking shit to Rhaenys. By the way, her name is pronounced Rhaenys, not Rhaenys. I think they're saying Rhaenys because of their English accents, but that's another thing that kind of irked me. It's Rhaenys. Rhaenys. Just say it with me now. Rhaenys, not Rhaenys. But anyway, you'll notice Boromund was a bit hesitant when he kneeled down and said, "I, Boromund Baratheon, pledge my allegiance to you, Rhaenyra," right? That is very telling of a future event that will happen at the end of this season. And I feel like I'm spoiling so much. So if you're watching this and I'm still live, go back to watching me live. And yeah, but if not, that scene is crucial for when the Black Council is established and Rhaenyra sends Lucerys to Storm's End. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I know you're probably like, holy shit, this is really short, and I feel like it's short, so if you want me to make these episode breakdown videos longer, like I'm talking 15 minutes plus, then just let me know down below in the comment section. I kind of didn't want to overwhelm people with a really long video because there's probably a lot of new people watching my channel right now, and I can go super in depth, or I can do a more lighthearted, fun breakdown like this one. Thank you. Either way, thank you so much for watching. My name's Mark, and holy shit, House of the Dragon is back. Ryan Condal, Miguel Sapochnik, my dudes, if you are watching this, everybody involved in the writing team, and specifically George R.R. Martin, if you are watching this, you fucking saved our entertainment industry, single-handedly. This video, Rhaenyra is told by Viserys that every single ruler since Aegon has this vision of a great threat coming from the north, and there has to be a Targaryen on the Iron Throne to protect and unite the Seven Kingdoms to fight that great white north thing coming. That's all going to tie into the Jon Snow show. If you want more, check out my live stream. I'm probably still live right now. A long night, and thank you. Subscribe if you want to, slap a like if you want to, and turn your notifications on. Sautriza spustari ixos daor, Dracarys.
Sautriza spustari ixos daor.
What's up? Another amazing House of the Dragon episode. In this video, I actually want to do things quite a bit differently. I'm going to switch the format up a little bit. Like, basically, what I'm going to do is do a top 4 scenes of the episode. And then, I'm obviously live right now. And then I'll also do, like, a full-out, nearly 20-minute episode breakdown where I talk about almost everything that happened in the episode. Please, before I jump into that, do me a massive favor and slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 420. Get it? Alright, so if you've already slapped a like, do me one real quick favor. One more thing. Just make sure you're subscribed and turn your notifications on. If you make sure you're subscribed, you'll help me reach my goal of trying to hit 100,000 here on YouTube. And then also, you'll do yourself a favor if you enjoy my content by, getting an alert every single time I drop a video. So the first scene, one of my favorite scenes from the episode that I want to talk about, not all of these are my favorite, they're just, it's like a mix of my favorite and also scenes that I think need to be further discussed. But the first one is Viserys 100% confirming that he rode Balerion the Black Dread. I seen a couple posts online, believe it or not, of people saying like, Viserys isn't a dragon rider, he knows the power of dragons, he's gonna avoid dragons at all costs. Not in canon. Like, his character is so much more dynamic and in depth, and he's got layers like the Onion and Shrek. But he still rode Balerion. He's still a fucking Targaryen. He was the last one to ride Balerion before Balerion dies. And in the book specifically, he rides Balerion only around the city once and then lands because he's afraid that Balerion won't even be able to make a full-out trip to, say, Dragonstone or something, right? That was also the scene that had leaked online from the Australian YouTube channel, the news or whatever, and they were like, this scene is really hard to watch. Right? And now that I've seen the full context of it, like, yes, it is extremely cringy to watch. It's not a bad scene. It's just, it's fucking, it's weird as shit. You got this 12-year-old little girl who looks like she's 7 talking to the king who looks like he's 40, and she's like, I will give you lots of children. And that line right there made me literally physically cringe down to my gourd. I was like, dude, what? What the fuck? But anyway, it was actually handled pretty well. He does this in the books. He basically tells her, dude, she's a child. That's too young, right? So then he goes for Alicent. In this show, She's clearly older than Laena. But like I said, overall, it was nowhere near as cringy as the out-of-context clip that we saw where Viserys is asking her, what did your mother say? What did your father say, right? Like, overall, the scene was handled pretty well, and it has to happen. It had to happen because it was in canon, right? But more importantly, the most... my most exciting takeaway from that scene is that he confirms that he rolled Balerion the Black Dread, which is fucking awesome, because King Viserys rode the biggest dragon of all. And that also leads me into Laena asking about Vhagar. Laena's eventually going to mount Vhagar, and it's the sadness that she has from feeling rejection from the king, according to some of the leaks, and just in general, she's going to go and seek out and claim Vhagar. Vhagar's probably around Spicetown where she's at. She's a member of House Velaryon. Spicetown is near Driftmark, and it's also near High Tide, so we're probably going to watch her claim Vhagar in the next episode. Can't fucking wait! Only for it to be stolen by Aemon at her funeral. Alright, now the next one is a fucking doozy. We got confirmation. Oh yeah, speaking of which, the intro was amazing. The intro was blood and fire, literally awesome. I'm really glad they decided to stick with the same scene, or the same thematic score, rather, right? Game of Thrones theme song. But I honestly feel like it was a little underwhelming, just a little bit. It's a lot of blood gushing towards it, like it goes on a little bit long. But as the seasons come by, it's probably going to get better and better. But overall, I think I'd say it's like an 8 out of 10, the intro for House of the Dragon. But it's blood pouring into the crown of Jaehaerys, filming this Targaryen family tree. It's all fire and blood, baby, right? But the model of old Valyria, right, that we see in the intro, and then the one that we see that King Viserys is having carved from the stonemasons. He's basically got it in his personal chambers, right? I think that's all setting up for a Doom of Valyria show. We're gonna see, like Viserys mentioned in this episode, there was 1,000 dragons at the height of Valyria. There was enough to cover the seas. Not every single house in Valyria rode dragons, but for the most part, the ones that did had massive amounts of power, and that's something that I'm hoping we get to see. But overall, it's really cool that we got confirmation on blood mages doing their thing, and how the highest up of the Valyrian families were at the face of the volcano. That's pretty dope. It's like the Valyrians were preoccupied with conquering the world and didn't realize their own doom was coming. This show is amazing. My dick has been hard this entire video, and it's just going to show us, how big it is. No, I'm just kidding. This show is going to show us more things like that from canon, like confirming it for the show universe at the very least. Like, George is going to eventually confirm it for the book universe in his way, but it's awesome to have this stuff and a lot of these theories and fan, predictions and shit confirmed for the TV world. It's amazing! Okay, now the next scene that I want to talk about is kind of like a missing scene, right? So we all saw Daemon in the standoff with Sir Otto, Kristen Cole, and Rhaenyra shows up, talks him down. She's like, if you want to kill me, then fucking kill me. They have a whole exchange in High Valyrian, right? They're doing an impeccable job at speaking High Valyrian. I speak it myself. I'm very fluent. Zeltrizote, Zeltrizas postari, Ixos, Daor. That's not the only lines that I know, but that's the one that I can say 100% confidently without mispronouncing anything. But anyway, the scene that I'm talking about is like in the trailer. Daemon, and I'm showing you it right now. Daemon steals a dragon egg from inside the caves around Dragonstone, and when he does it, he pulls up like this mucusy shit. It's like a very fresh egg, and then he's confronted by this black beast dragon that it might be Sea Smoke, who knows who it is. We're gonna get confirmation, right? But is that scene cut? Did they not leave it in the episode of him going into the caves of Dragonstone, claiming the egg, and then going out and ultimately being like, this is for Mysaria? He's faking Mysaria being pregnant. He didn't even tell her that. You know what I mean? Or obviously she's not pregnant, but I'm saying like she didn't know when she was talking to him about it after the scene. So it's kind of crazy. It's like, was that scene cut? Or maybe it wasn't cut and it's going to happen later on before Daemon and Rhaenyra get married. Maybe the way that Daemon gets rid of his wife Rhea Royce in order to marry Laena when she's older, not 12-year-old Laena that we saw in this episode, but the older version of her. Maybe the way he gets rid of Rhea Royce is by giving a dragon egg to the Faceless Men, and the Faceless Men kill Rhea Royce for him. The only way that the Faceless Men will take a contract is if you were giving up something that means so much to you, like you're not going to be the same without it. So if Daemon is ultimately spurned from stealing a dragon egg that he uses to give to the Faceless Men to kill Rhea Royce, well then that's a huge toll, right? Obviously, King Viserys would never trust him again, but also Rhea Royce dies in an accident mysteriously, which opens up the way for Laena to marry Daemon. And also, Laena's betrothed at the time, son of a Sea Lord of Bravos, I think. He is just a fuck up, and he runs out of money. He squanders all of his family money, so Daemon takes him out. So it's kind of like, I don't know. We'll see how the show takes it. But like I said, there's definitely something going on with them showing us that scene with Daemon taking the egg so much and then ultimately skipping over it. And he's holding the egg with the face down with Sir Otto, Kristen Cole, and then eventually Rhaenyra and Syrax. Alright, now the last scene that I'm super excited about that I want to mention for this video. Remember, full breakdown's coming. And actually, I'm live right now giving the best type of breakdown, which is a long and in-depth one. I'm you know, reacting to it here on YouTube. But basically, when Maester Mellos, when Grand Maester Mellos is putting the maggots on the king's finger, which is also kind of something that we need to talk about because the king does end up losing his finger, but it's much later when Rhaenyra's older. She has her maester come from Dragonstone, and they end up removing a few of the... I hear you, Batman. You guys gotta wait to eat. I'm sorry. I woke up and had to film. Remember when he brings up to Maester Mellos and Sir Otto, like, yeah, they want me to marry Laena. She's a child. Like, Sir Otto literally says that. Pay attention to the body language. Why do you want to start meowing as soon as I start talking, buddy? Pay attention to the body language between Maester Mellos and Sir Otto. They're literally, House Hightower and the Maesters of Old Town are working hand in hand in this show. They're literally coercing the king into doing things and making him think it's his own decision. They want him to marry Alicent because Alicent is subject to Sir Otto. Sir Otto is working with the Maesters. They're probably poisoning the king slowly so that it's not obvious when he ultimately dies towards the end of this season. I think it's going to be directly related to all of these years and years of poisoning from Sir Otto and Grand Maester Mellos. But it's so obvious that there's a Grand Maester conspiracy happening in this show. I'm gonna do a video probably directed just like pulling all the clues. When we get a few more episodes, I'm gonna try to pull all the clues that we have and say, yes, this is 100% what is happening. The Maesters will have a hand in starting the Dance of the Dragons, which is the start of the downfall of House Targaryen. We know that they probably had... Batman, you were speech jamming the shit out of me, buddy. Kitty's over there chilling. You're over here... Come here. But yes, the Maesters will in fact they're playing the long game. They had a hand in the death of a lot of Targaryens at the tragedy at Summerhall, where, you know, King Aegon the Unlikely was trying to bring back dragons, right? And that's right before the main series starts. So that's at the birth of Rhaegar, Jon Snow's father, right? And they've also started the dance that wiped out all of the dragons. And that's literally by having Alicent, you know, give the king male heirs, and those male heirs are going to cause a civil war between the Targaryens that kills most of the dragons. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank Ryan Kondo, Miguel Sapochnik, and the entire cast of this show as well. You guys have fucking brought A Song of Ice and Fire, the world, you know, back alive. It's a fucking amazing. And also, special thank you to you for watching, because without you, I really wouldn't be able to do these videos. A big special thank you to every single member of my Patreon producer over on patreon.com/SirHuntReviews. And like I said, special thank you to you for watching. Please, if you enjoyed this, slap a like on the video. That goal's going to be 420. No, not. Please subscribe as well. I'm trying to hit 100,000 here on YouTube. What's up? If you're unaware, these videos are things that you may or may not have missed. There's usually a different number of things, but for the most part, you should be able to find at least one thing that I mention from my own thoughts and perspective and commentary and analysis and all of that good stuff, there should be at least one thing that you may have missed, or maybe some idea that I put into your head that is at least considered new. But all that aside, please, if you enjoy this kind of content and you enjoy my channel, help me combat YouTube delisting me and basically shadow banning me. If you don't believe me, go into incognito mode so that your own YouTube account and what you watch doesn't affect the search. But then go into incognito mode and type in House of the Dragon, and you'll see none of my videos show up. So if you enjoy my stuff, help me stay alive and strive. And all you have to do is just slap a like, subscribe, and then make sure you have your notifications turned on. And if you're a really, really big fan, consider checking out my Patreon. A big special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/reviews. Along that, now, you may not know this, but HBO actually hired me to play the role of Laenor, and when Laenor's on the back of his dragon Sea Smoke, that's actually me, your boy, Sir Hunts, and I named that dragon Sea Smoke because the like goal for this video is going to be 420. No, I'm just kidding. That's Theo Nate. But no, for real, the entirety of the battle in the Stepstones was just amazing. Daemon pulling the Jon Snow vibes, where Jon Snow runs to save his buddy Rickon, his brother Rickon, and he literally is about to commit a self-sacrifice. Daemon does that too, except for he actually faces consequences and shows you what Daemon is about. Daemon is about that life. Alright, now I mentioned this briefly in my live stream, speaking of which, that's linked down below in the description, but now that I've seen Dark Sister up close and in action, literally Daemon killed like 20 people, I think Dark Sister's Longclaw, and I think I'm going to do a video on it, but I'm pretty sure that Dark Sister's Longclaw in show canon. If you're unaware, Dark Sister, spoilers, spoiler warning, Daemon is going to die. It's not that big of a spoiler warning, but when he dies, Dark Sister is retrieved and eventually gets into the hands of this dude, Bloodraven. Bloodraven, or Three-Eyed Raven on the TV show, sort of turns Breanne into who he is. Bloodraven, who owned Dark Sister, is said to have gone to the wall when he's sent there by King Aegon, Egg the Unlikely, right? He's sent there to the wall for committing treason instead of dying. And when he goes there, he takes Dark Sister with him. And that's the last known whereabouts of Dark Sister. Now, who else is at the wall? House Mormont. Specifically, Jorah Mormont. Jorah is Jorah's father, and he has in his possession House Mormont's ancestral Valyrian steel sword, Longclaw. Now, it's like, there's a lot of gaps to fill in there. Like I said, I'm going to make a video on it. But let me know what you think down below. Is Dark Sister Longclaw? I mean, it looks strikingly similar. And Longclaw is a bastard sword. And Dark Sister is said to be the same idea of like a small, slender blade that may have even originally been designed for a woman. It was wielded by Visenya, the original King Aegon the Conqueror's sister wife. Now, I will say I did see some rhetoric in my live stream. I did a live stream with my buddy Ray. And someone, and himself included, thought that it was a bit underwhelming, and I will say that I could kind of agree with that sentiment. But when you realize what happened in the books, in the Stepstones, not really that exciting. What they did on the TV show fits it perfectly. It didn't need to take up more than a 1 or 2 episode chunk, and the fact that they build up to it over the past 2 episodes, episode 1 and 2, we keep hearing about this crab feeder, right? It was handled flawlessly. Like, we got to see a little bit of a battle with Daemon and Caraxes at the beginning of the episode, but then the real majority of the meat was saved with no jumps for the most part for the end of the episode. Like, we didn't jump to go find out what was going on with Viserys and Rhaenyra and Alicent, right? We got to get all of the War of the Stepstones. And you got to realize that Daemon is only down there for about 2 years. After he kills Prince Cragus Drahar, the crab feeder, after he kills him in single combat and beheads him, and this show took it a step further, he literally bodies him, he de-bodies him, he bodies him, because he cuts him in half. Bi means 2, I think, right? He bodies Cragus, and it was perfect, because that arc didn't happen. Daemon didn't, walk into the lion's den, so to speak. He did defeat him in single combat, but he didn't take that many arrows. He didn't risk his dragon not being around. Like, they just made this so much more intense, and I loved everything about it. You all let me know what you think. Do you think it was boring, or do you think it was one of the most exciting things of this show so far, like myself? Now, another scene that I want to explain, or something you may have missed, is that the reason why Daemon is upset and basically commits heinous atrocities on this House Targaryen guardsman is because in the letter that just handed him is basically saying, like, hey, Daemon, I know you're losing, and without my help, you would lose even more, but I'm going to help you. I'm sending men your way. They're on their way. Just kind of hold out, right? And that's when Daemon goes on that sort of suicide mission, right? It's amazing because Matt Smith doesn't say any words in this entirety. Like, it's all on facial expressions and body language, and he does an amazing job. The reason why he freaks out on this House Targaryen guardsman is because he's tired of his brother doing one of two things: not allowing him to show strength in House Targaryen, and then also not allowing him to do what Viserys knows deep down should be done. And one of them is committing the war in the Stepstones because it's directly affecting the Crown's allies, House Velaryon. They should go get rid of the Triarchy and Kragus Crabfeeder because it's literally going to eventually get worse and worse and worse, right? Deep down, Viserys knows Daemon is right and knows Corlys is right, and that's one of the things that just frustrates Daemon, and he's just got all that emotion tied into it, like, Daddy Viserys is going to come save you, so he just takes it out on the person nearest him. And you probably knew that if you're watching this. I just thought I would explain that further. Now, right now, I just want to take the time to say Emily Carey's performance in this episode was just flawless. Her character is my favorite next to Daemon. I'm supposed to like Rhaenyra. Millie Alcock is doing an amazing job. She looks perfect. Her hair, the wig, the body language, the demeanor on screen, everything about this character that she's added on, or that's been added on from the book counterpart, is amazing. But I just can't help but just feel everything for Alicent. And it's not just the physical attractiveness. Obviously, yeah, that's part of it, but Emily Carey is doing an amazing job. All right, now for the next part of this video, I kind of want to shift focus to Viserys. 3 things. One is that him not killing the White Hart, and the White Hart sort of giving a nod to Rhaenyra, is symbolic as hell. Like, Rhaenyra ends up killing a boar, and that boar was the same one. You're right. You know what I'm about to say here. This boar is a time-traveling undead zombie boar, the same one that kills Robert Baratheon. The Kingswood has an infestation of wild boars looking to kill royal, like, next of heir, or in Robert's case, the fucking king, right? Do something about it. Get some tigers in the Kingswood to kill these rampaging, man-killing bears. This is insane. But Rhaenyra took one out and carried it back to the camp and is covered in blood, and that whole scene was just amazing, right? And also, while I'm talking about this, I forgot. Look, you see what just happened? As Rhaenyra walks in her badassery, she sees, guess who? Sir Harwin Breakbones Strong. Breakbones, or Break Cervix, he's the father of most of her illegitimate children, according to a lot of people in Fire and Blood. Not just one source, but like all the sources. Also, Laenor, the guy she marries, is gay. I said a spoiler warning like 5 or 6 videos ago, and also in this one. How hard it is for Viserys to accept the spear from the Lannister, knowing he wants to fuck his daughter and wants to marry her and, sort of do what people do in that time, right? He's just going through so much, and it's all makes sense now because he confirms that he has dragon dreams. He doesn't just say, like, hey, this prophecy was passed down from Aegon to every king who sat the Iron Throne since then, and that's that a great threat is going to come from the north. No, he has dragon dreams. The whole reason why he obsessed over making Emma Arryn have so many pregnancies, even though she kept having all these failures and it just killed her, literally, was because he had this vision, and he explains it to Alicent. He said, not verbatim, but he says, I have this dream. I put my male heir on the throne, and all the dragons roar as one, and it's this great uniting moment, unifying thing. And really? No. We get to see a true version of what happens with people who suffer from dragon dreams. In the books, Daenerys is currently suffering from them. In the story, in the backstory, in the lore of this, someone named Dany's the Dreamer, of House Targaryen, told her father, Aenar the Exile, in 12 years, the place we're all living in right now, the doom of Valyria is going to, in Valyria, the doom is going to happen, and we're all going to die unless we get out of here. Ever since then, and there's probably other Valyrian families who have dragon dreams as well, but ever since then, the Targaryens have been known to be melancholic, and sometimes it makes them go mad, sometimes it just makes them depressed, sometimes it makes them prophecy obsessed, like King Viserys and Jon Snow's father Rhaegar, right? Anybody who gets these dragon dreams, they have this melancholic attitude about it, and for the most part, it's just amazing. I guess what I'm getting at here is it's amazing that Viserys has it for the TV show. It's just one more thing that Ryan is bringing into the show universe from canon that sort of failed or skipped entirely in the main series. It's just amazing. Please slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 420. Now here's an Easter egg. One of them is Joanna Swan. It's referenced when Rhaenyra walks up to who they call Kyra or Kyra. Correct me down below in the comment section. You guys are going to anyway. But the older Lannister woman who's kind of a Karen, kind of a bitch, right? She says, well, Joanna's been kidnapped and basically she's got to be ransomed back. Well, if you're unaware, Joanna Swan, right, that character eventually ends up ruling Lys in all but name. Like they are sold and work their way up from the bottom. It's a really awesome Easter egg that Ryan Condal, Miguel Sapochnik, and whoever wrote this episode decided to include. We probably won't see much of her or, aside from that mention, but that's just really cool. And then another one, and I mentioned this in my live stream, and I know I keep referencing it, but me and Ray went for like 2 hours last night. So if you want something even more in depth than this video, check the link down below and go ahead and go watch that. But the clubfoot, holy crap, his clubfoot is super club. The way he walks made me just be like, wow, dude. I actually felt pity for him. Like a couple people in my chat were like, oh man, he's creepy as hell. I actually felt pity for him because he's like clearly not allowed to do what the men do, and that's not a big deal. But at that time, it is. So he's like literally forced to sit with the women, which, like I said, that's not normally a big deal, but in that time it is. So we're probably going to see how he's picked on eventually later on in the show. But you got to realize this dude, the clubfoot, he ends up becoming Varys, right? So he's not just sitting there because he can't help hunt. He probably actually could help a little bit. He could at least stand with the other dudes and maybe get drunk with them. No, he's sitting with the ladies who gossip because he's the master of whisperers. This little son of a bitch and his limp leg and his sitting down next to the women's, right, where Rhaenyra should have taken a seat at, right, where Alicent is currently sitting at. He's collecting all of that information. And I don't think he's going to have little birds like children that work for him like Varys does in the main series, but this is probably how he gets his information. He looks unassuming, and the fact that I told you I felt pity for him is exactly how the ladies felt when he walked up. They're like, yeah, sure, come and join us. You're not a threat at all. Your leg is super hobbled, and he actually makes a point to point that out. So this is all part of his character, all part of that portrayal of, hey, I'm an innocent wallflower type dude, kind of like what Mushroom does, right? So people in House of the Dragon, or sorry, people in Fire and Blood think Mushroom is what's called a lackwit, so they say information around him. That's kind of what's going on with Larys the Clubfoot. But also, did any of you also else think that this dude was Mushroom when he started singing? And then obviously he's not, and like that's his nickname or whatever, but like maybe this could still be Mushroom. Oh my god, we have to see this dude. Mushroom, you have to be in this show, buddy. Where are you? I will say, now that I'm on the subject of Mushroom, skipping ahead to the next video that I make, which will be in episode 4 promo breakdown, I think the street performer may be our first glimpse of Mushroom. Like there's someone saying, who will it be? The brother or the son? Right? There's someone who's performing magic, right? Because Rhaenyra sneaks out. I've actually broken that down in videos that are also linked down below in the description, right? Rhaenyra sneaks out to go meet up with her uncle, Prince Daemon, after he returns from the Stepstones, which we've seen in that preview, and they do some freaky shit, right? So that's where we may see Mushroom. The last little things that I wanted to mention is that, I could be wrong in this, but I think Rhaenyra's horse, that silver that she rides, is a direct, sort of callback to Daenerys' silver that she rides in the first season or two in Game of Thrones and in the books. It's like she's still currently riding. It's like her favorite horse. It's one of the things that allows her to adjust to her situation of being raped and kidnapped with Khal Drogo. So it's crazy to see someone who's closer to Daenerys' age in the books riding a silver mare in these riding leathers that are very similar to Dothraki riding leathers, just way more artisan, like way more in the style of House Targaryen at the height of their power, right? It screamed to me Daenerys in the earlier seasons. And maybe I could be making it up, but also, no, I'm not, because this is a prequel to Game of Thrones. It's in the same universe, and they intentionally want to visually make us remember the main series. I feel like, aside from Daenerys's Horse and Silver and Rhaenyra combo. One of the other things that stuck out to me is the Lannisters, right? So Sir Hugh of the Vale is playing Jason and Tyland, and without too many spoilers, Jason is perfect in what he's doing. He's doing like this sort of Tyrion half-drunken thing. We got to see Brett Lannister, who was someone who was mentioned in the leaks, but then Tyland becomes the hooded hand, and that's amazing. This is a good point to wrap this video up. I don't want to make it too long. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you want the video longer, well then let me know down below in the comment section, and then also check the description because I already did a 2-hour video or an hour and 45-minute video on this episode with my boy Raised Alba. Raised for Days is what he's called on YouTube. But thank you for watching. Thank you to every single member of my Patreon family. And my name's Mark. Along that, Sir Hunts. This has been Sir Hunts. This has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. My brain farted there. It really has been a long night.
Zaldrizes Buzdaris Gosdau.
Okay, so real quick, before I jump into the contents of this video, I am going through a bit of some personal problems right now, and I'm a bit behind on my bills, and the main one that affects my YouTube channel is my internet bill. So last night when I was live streaming and breaking down episode 4, speaking of which, I linked that down below in the description, but I mentioned how if anybody wanted to donate to Super Chat, they could donate to PayPal instead to help me pay my internet bill, which was literally going to be shut off today. So if you're watching this video, thank you to everybody who helped me pay my internet bill. In particular, big shout out to Israel Sexton, also shout out to Kelly Ann Dooley, Rafael Luna, Heart of Inspiration, Meaty Guter, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of these names, but also Matthew Vance, Shannon Grimes, Jan Spiker, Breanne Johnson, Debbie Grove, Eva Rodriguez, Dennis J. Sorensen. Thank you to every single one of you for donating to that. Y'all rock. And if you're unaware, and if you're new to my channel, thank you for subscribing, everybody that's joined recently. And also thank you to every single person who's watching this right now. If you could please do me 2 quick massive favors. 1, slap a like on this video, and then 2, if you enjoy my content and you've already slapped the like, make sure you subscribe and have your notifications turned on, so that way you'll get an alert every single time I drop a video throughout the wait for House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 5, or House of the Dragon Season 2, is this known on this channel, The Long Night. That's basically what we refer to any sort of long wait for the next A Song of Ice and Fire installment, whether that be a book or a TV show. Winds of Winter, House of the Dragon, or Jon Snow. Sex. That's a big theme in tonight's episode. Now, there's not really too much to explain there, except for like Targaryens like getting freaky. If you want something super in-depth and like an hour long, go and check out the live stream that I just referenced at the beginning of this video. But in particular, the Valyrian glyphs, they were everywhere this episode. Literally everywhere. They were on the bodies of the strippers dancing. It was on the glowing knife. We've seen Daemon Targaryen leave a secret love map written in Valyrian glyphs. Now, I've tried to compare these with some of the drawings that we've gotten of Dragonbinder, which is, if you're unaware, this horn that can control dragons, and it's got Valyrian glyphs written around it, right? I've tried to compare those, and I haven't really come up with any similarities. I'm showing you all right now. Maybe down below in the comment section, you all see some sort of similar shapes, and we could translate directly what these words mean. And it's gonna come back and be important because I'm pretty sure not only is Valyrian heavily used in this show, but also so are these glyphs. So there may be even something like Daemon and Rhaenyra leaving notes for each other in the future with these glyphs. But also, like I said, it's way more of a thing in the books because Dragonbinder has really yet to be used to bind a dragon. So it was amazing to get to see the written version of the Targaryen language. And I also have a theory that I think the Old Tongue, which is a language that the free folk speak up north in the Song of Ice and Fire books and Dance of Dragons, Jon asks this dude named Leathers, who's this wildling who has joined the Night's Watch, to calm down the giant One-Wegdar 1-1 by speaking something known as the Old Tongue. I think it's related to Valyrian. And the only way to find out is by having someone who speaks Valyrian hear the old tongue and be like, hey, that sounds like this word. We haven't exactly had that yet. Maybe Jon will learn some Valyrian when he comes back from the dead. Real quick, we also got this badass House Blackwood member destroy this House Bracken member. And if you're unaware, the Blackwoods and the Brackens are like the Hatfield McCoys of West Virginia, but for in Westeros. The House Bracken and House Blackwood members have had a long history of basically hating each other, and it has something to do with stealing something from another house. I don't really have time to get into it in this video, but the Hatfield McCoys are like this rural American family in West Virginia / Kentucky area, and they feuded with each other in this area known as Tug Fork of the Big Sandy River from like 1862 to like 1891 or somewhere around there. But George often has House Bracken and House Blackwood beefing throughout history, and that's the main important takeaway, is that we got to see two of them kill each other, and this is directly in the books. They kill each other in House Blackwood, the House Blackwood member kills a Bracken member in proclamation for Rhaenyra's affection. They basically put on a duel for her. And now another thing to note of this in this opening scene from episode 4 is that a very key moment, spoiler alert, I'm just going to freely say spoilers because I give so many spoiler warnings, but the end of the season will take place at Storm's End. Very close to the end of the season. May happen in episode 9, right? That's where Ned lost his head. So Game of Thrones is famous for subverting expectations and having the crazy thing happen in the episode before the season finale. So maybe this will happen in episode 9. But it's important because we see Storm's End. You notice those leaves on the ground? That's part of the reason of how it got its name. It's a giant castle built to withhold the strongest storms in all of Westeros. It's literally in the Stormlands and it's on the coast. The coast surrounding it is known as Shipbreaker Bay, because anytime a ship comes up on it, a ship usually breaks apart. For instance, and this is really horrible and terrifying if you were Stannis or young Robert or Renly, right? Stannis and Robert and Renly watched their dad die. Steffon Baratheon died at sea, their mother and everything. They were sent. Steffon Baratheon was supposedly, this is a rumor, going to be named Hand of the King in place of Tywin. So Aerys sent Steffon Baratheon, who is Stannis, King Robert, and Renly's dad, over across the Narrow Sea to go and get him a bride, right? And then when he comes back with this dude named Patchface and a bunch of other things and stuff and people, they die right in front of Stannis and Renly. They die right in front of Stannis and Robert. And Patchface watches ashore. Patchface is this dude who should have been dead, but isn't. Initially, he was a very smart person, but he drowns at sea, and he's saved by mermen, and he has these dreams and all this stuff. And I don't really like going on these side tangents, but if you all watching this likes me to explain, if you all like it when I go on these tangents, let me know down below. I'll try to stay more focused if you don't. But anyway, that's why that area gets its name. So the end of this season is going to take place there. And one thing of note is that in the books, Borman Baratheon, the dude that we see talking to Rhaenyra, is staunchly supportive of House Baratheon's claim through Rhaenys for the Iron Throne. So they supported Rhaenys in the Great Council of 101 AC. But as we saw in this show, they've taken a step back from that, and they've made it more of like, oh, no, he doesn't really respect Rhaenys, and neither will his son Boros, right? So it'll be interesting when Rhaenyra's son comes back and visits with Lord Boros at Storm's End, because it's going to be a totally different dynamic. He's not going to be controlling the scene like how Rhaenyra is and threatening to speed things along to have supper and then ultimately just storming out like that. He's not going to have the same commanding presence as the Princess of Dragonstone, his mother, and I'm referring to Lucerys, Rhaenyra's second-born son, when he comes back here at the end of the season, and Aemon is there waiting for him. And remember, Lucerys takes Aemon's eye, so it's going to be a pretty intense moment, and all of it's going to call back to this episode 4 scene. Okay, so I saw a few questions about this in my comment section. Grandmaster Melos brings Rhaenyra moon tea at the end of the episode, and that's to get rid of the baby she may potentially have from fornicating with Kristen Cole. Now, Rhaenyra's clearly never had moon tea before, but there's something really traumatic in the books, in Catelyn's POV chapters in A Storm of Swords. She's dealing with her aging father, the Lord of Riverrun, and he's pretty much out of it. He doesn't really know what he's saying, he's in a lot of pain, and he's given milk of the poppy most of the time. He says very few intelligible things. One of the things he says is Tansy. Tansy? at least through Catelyn's POV, she thinks it was someone that her father dealt with when he was younger. We find out later on in the book that tansy is actually an ingredient in moon tea. If brewed properly, moon tea will create an abortion for the person who drinks it. So that's kind of, why Grandmaster Mellos obviously provides it to Rhaenyra to make sure that there's no bastard children born from her, but also it kind of leaves it up in the air as to whether she actually takes the tea, because this was also brought up in my live stream chat, which is linked down below in the description. Speaking of which, thank you to every single person who watched that, and also thank you to every single person who literally paid my bills. You guys rock. I give you a shout out at the beginning of this video. That's everybody who donated to my PayPal. And the reason why I said PayPal, super sidetracked, it's my ADD. I'm also slightly autistic. I'm pretty sure I'm on the spectrum of being autistic, right? But when you donate here on YouTube, super chats is what it's called. YouTube taxes that like they do the ad revenue. So they take 35 to 40% of it, and you don't see it until next month. So that's why I was mentioning for everyone to donate to PayPal. Now, along the lines of moon tea, one of the things that I was just mentioning that was brought up in my live stream is that because it is sort of like a choice that's proposed to Rhaenyra, where like she can take this tea to get rid of any potential child that she may have had with Criston Cole, maybe she doesn't take it. And I brought up pictures, and I'm doing that again for you all right now, of Criston Cole next to the actor who's playing the older version of Jacaerys, and also next to the older version of playing Harwin, and also the actor who's playing the older version of Laenor. So when you combine all of these people with Rhaenyra, the one that matches up the most, in my opinion, is Harwin Strong. Like, yes, Jacaerys does look like Criston Cole, but that may have been an intentional casting choice. I don't think Criston Cole will be the father of Jacaerys, although it is highly possible. We did see that Harwin is not sexually involved with Rhaenyra yet, and since this show confirmed Rhaenyra and Criston Cole is a thing, it's possible. Let me know down below in the comment section. It still serves the same purpose in that Rhaenyra did not have legitimate heirs with her husband to be Laenor Velaryon. Now let's jump into some critiques of the episode. I personally have none. I have had very few critiques with this show in 4 episodes, except for the birth scene with Aemma Arryn. I thought it went on just a little bit too long because the Maesters are literally digging inside her, and it was really hard to watch, but that's not a real complaint. The complaints that I've seen, at least some of the rhetoric that I've seen about this episode, was that it was a little bit slow, and to that I will say what I always say, and it's that please do yourself a favor, and at the very least read a book called The Rogue Prince, or The Princess and the Queen. It's a novella. It's like 50 pages, 25 pages. It's such a small amount, but it gives you more in-depthness to this story so that when you get to the slower parts, you have more appreciation of it. I actually call the slower parts slower to me, but that's because I'm constantly pausing them and rewinding them. We have so much dialogue being exposed and revealing lore that I want to re-listen to what characters are saying, especially in the Valyrian scenes, especially when Viserys is just casually revealing how the blood mages in Valyria drew their source of power from the volcanoes and basically confirmed that the doom of Valyria was caused by the volcanoes and a chain reaction in the blood mages messing with all that. Like, he confirmed it. I love the slower parts of the episode. And this episode had no battles. We only saw Caraxes' butt. We didn't see any dragon battles, like when Caraxes flew over on the ship when Daemon and Rhaenyra arrived back at the same time. Like, we didn't get that much action, but we did get to see a lot of sex. Like, there was a lot of sex. And you know what? I take that back. Maybe I do have one complaint in this episode, and it's that we didn't see full-on vagina. We've seen full-on penis and balls, but we ain't seen a Targaryen yet. I want to see what the pubes look like. And then another specific scene or moment that you may have missed, which is, that's why these videos are called. At least my goal is, I may not talk about anything you actually missed, but at least I'll put a new idea that you would never thought of until you watch my video. That's the main goal in these, right? But another thing that you may have missed, or something that I want to draw more attention to, is the scene where Rhaenyra is sneaking through the streets with Daemon. There is an eyeless woman. Holy crap, Maggie the Frog on crack, right? This is a woods witch, definitely a woods witch. I'm pretty sure the people around and in the streets of King's Landing come to this woods witch to get their prophecy told, maybe some moon tea brewed, what we saw Melos handing Rhaenyra at the end of the episode, right? The Woods Witch says, do you want to see your fate, girl? And it's even crazy that she knows that Rhaenyra is there because, well, she's blind. But then also, right as she says that, we see a dragon's mouth open and then fire come out. So once again, if you want to get mad at someone for spoiling this series, blame irrelevant background characters like this blind lady or Joffrey. Joffrey's not a background character, but just all the more reason to hate him. That was an awesome scene. I really love that they threw that in there. It serves as like desserts for book readers and also show watchers. When they go back and watch that scene after the show's concluded, they'll be like, oh my God, they literally spoiled it right here. It's awesome. I love everything that Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik have done with this series. Also, let me know down below, Ryan, if you're watching these videos or anybody who knows Ryan personally, his last name is not Condell or Condal, which is how I've been saying it. So I think it's Condal or Kendall. I don't know. Let me know down below. Daemon, one of the last things I want to mention is Daemon. This is the second time he hasn't been able to get hide. It's because if he's not like the one taking the power and controlling the situation, he sort of loses his direction. And I'm going to be honest here. I can somewhat relate to that. Not what he's doing, no, but how you just kind of get out of the moment because you get in your head too much. I can relate to that, and I think a lot of people, regardless of your gender, can relate to that as well. Daemon is so complex, and it's not that he was just teasing Rhaenyra and turned her on and left. No, he threw his fist at the wall because he's mad that his dick won't get hard or stay hard, and he saw that Rhaenyra wasn't scared of the situation, and the fear is what he likes. The power that he likes having over Rhaenyra is what makes him gain the erection, and the fact that Rhaenyra is actually turned on by it turns him off. So that's crazy, and just like the onions in Shrek, Daemon has yet another layer to explore. Alright, now this feels like a good point to wrap this video up. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and again, thank you to every single person who donated over at paypal.com, and then also again to every single person on my patreon.com/RHuntReviews, and thank you for watching. If you want a longer video, well then check the link down below in the description, because I went for 2 hours talking about this show, and I also already broke down the episode 5 promo that happens towards the end of that live stream. I'm going to be doing a video that'll probably be out within the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunts. Oh yeah, please slap a like on this video. Like goal's going to be 420. Alonatan Zaldrizos Buzdari Ixos Daur. What the hell? Mom? Mom, what? Oh, come on.
Zaldrizes Buzdaris Kosdaur.
Alright, so I figured it out. This, after narrowing down the insects, and I looked at, some medieval insects to kind of figure this out, I believe this is a firefly. Now, when you, read A Song of Ice and Fire, there's actually no references to fireflies. I don't believe there's any houses that have a firefly on their sigil, although there could be. There could very well be, and just hasn't been revealed yet. But for this TV show, the firefly on the cane of Clubfoot. What is the symbolism for that? Well, fireflies in nature have like a natural light source. And if you look at the end of this bug on Clubfoot's staff, it has a diamond at the end, which clearly means it's emitting light. Now, initially I was like, oh, it's clearly a roach with a diamond butt plug. That's obviously not the case. Fireflies in nature, or as it's known in Latin as the Lampyridae, are a family of insects in the beetle order. So I was kind of right in thinking that it was a beetle in my live stream breakdown. So just go ahead and check the link down below in the description if you want to watch that. Basically, I went and as soon as I watched the episode, I went live for an hour on my channel. I do that every Sunday at 10:15. I've been doing that since Game of Thrones Season 6. But basically, there you get my initial reaction and, my thoughts after watching the episode. And mostly, I talk about what happens in the books compared to what happens in the TV show. So, again, that's linked down below in the description. Go ahead and go check it out. Also, slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 420. And then make sure you turn your notifications on. All the way to an 11. So that way you'll get notified every single time I drop a video throughout the wait for House of the Dragon. Well, the next episode, eventually Season 2, and then also the Jon Snow show, Winds of Winter, and anything related to the Song of Ice and Fire universe. first, as it's known here on this channel, the long night. Also, YouTube is currently shadow banning my channel. My videos don't show up in the ranking system, but that's ending. It's going to be ending very soon. My videos are starting to gain traction again. I'm starting to get promoted in the algorithm, but we're still not quite there yet. So please help me completely defeat YouTube shadow ban and subscribe. Once I reach 100,000 here on YouTube, that will basically let YouTube know, hey, this guy's videos are being shadow banned for literally no reason. Let's promote his stuff in the algorithm. All right, so getting back on track here, the Firefly bug, like symbology, nature, the spiritual meaning of like what a lightning bug or a firefly bug means, is that basically you have to learn to appreciate the smaller things in life. It's the simple things that really matter the most, and in my opinion, that's kind of perfect for Lares' character. Remember, he's always reminding Alicent to stop and smell the flowers, right? But you also have to realize that a firefly itself, like when you watch it outside, I get a lot of light bugs. I've been watching them since I was a little kid. I used to catch them in a plastic bottle, but they go light and then they go dark. So they don't consistently stay light. In my opinion, the spiritual meaning of a lightning bug is that there's a delicate balance in between light and dark. And this fucking guy, Larry's, is like walking that line. This is really the only symbology I can kind of think of because, like I said, fireflies aren't really referenced in A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, there's a Prince of Dragonflies, there's Duncan the Small, who's the son of Aegon the Unlikely, or Egg from the Dunk and Egg stories, right? He's known as the Prince of Dragonflies, but that's not related to Larry's. Obviously, this is before that guy's even born. So it has to mean that this dude is an agent of chaos, and he's a more well-rounded, more mysterious version of Lares Varys combined together. He's an amalgamation of the two characters. But if you all agree with my Firefly symbology down below in the comment section, let me know. I think this fits perfectly with the theme of the show, and that no character in this show is straight up black or straight up white. They are a mix. They are in between. They are gray, like the human condition. They, do good things and they do bad things. And I think that's what Lares is supposed to represent. He's like an agent of chaos, yes, but also there must be chaos in order to remind us what's good and what's right? So he and this Firefly represents that delicate balance between light and dark, in my opinion. Obviously, I could be completely wrong and I could be making myself sound like a jackass. Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, shout out to my Patreon and massive supporter here on YouTube, Dennis Sorensen. He sent me this DM over on Instagram, which is awesome because he was paying attention to my live chat last night when I kept asking people what they thought it was. He literally went out of his way, took a screenshot, and sent it to me through the DMs over on Instagram. Speaking of which, go follow me at Sir_Hunts _reviews. But yeah, thanks for that, Dennis. Watch out! King's Landing! Holy crap, this guy was jerking off in the window, ladies and gentlemen. The last... butt ass naked too. And if you'll notice, when he sort of winks at the servants later, they look at him in disgust. And that's not something you would typically do to a Targaryen. That's not something you would do to Targaryen royalty. Not to their face, but they did that because they saw him jerking off in the window. They might have even got a little bit of his kids on their face. I mean, come on. The jokes never stop. Baby, use a window jacker. You mad at me because you can't jack off on the city. Baby, use a window jacker. Yeah, this is one of the greatest scenes of all time in anything ever. Like, Aegon, dude, you're a fucking legend, buddy. You're a fucking legend in Comali. A fucking legend. But no, seriously, his character, right? So if you'll notice, in the Dragon Pit, he's very much friends with Jace and Luke. And that's interesting. Oh, I love the way they say Jacaerys, by the way. That's a really cool name to say his name. I always said Jacaerys. And actually, in the audiobooks, that's how the narrator announces it. Jacaerys. But Jacaerys is a really, it sounds more like a legit pronunciation. But anyway, if you'll notice how Aegon the Second is, or he's eventually going to become Aegon the Older, right? You'll notice how he's playing side. He's like, yo, how could I become the coolest guy in this situation? Oh, make fun of my little brother Aemon with my uncles. You know what I mean? Sorry, not with his uncles, with his cousins, right? But here's the thing. Well, they would be his nephews, right? His strong nephews, but they're all also cousins and all also share enough DNA to be considered brothers. And all of that aside, Aegon, his character is going to be amazing for this show. Like obviously he doesn't jack off in the window in the books, but he very much does like to watch. So when he's crowned and when they go and find him, right? They go to Helena first, and Helena's like, well, he's not in my bed. He's probably stole one of my bugs and using it to insert it into his butt while he's jacking off in the window, right? No, she doesn't say that in the books, but that's heavily sort of insinuated, because when he is found, he's in a rat's nest in Flea Bottom, and he's getting sucked off by someone underage while he watches two other people sort of go at it, right? So Aegon is a straight up freak, and they've took it to another level, like they always do on these adaptations, and it's what makes the adaptations so great, right? They kicked it up a lot to an 11 by having him, do what he did on the citizens of King's Landing. All right, I spent enough time about Aegon jerking it. What's up with bad dragon daddy Daemon? Like, there was a scene that was cut. We saw it and I'm showing you the image right now. We saw it in the promo images that they released, where Daemon literally looks like he's comforting his children on the balcony after they watched Lena die. But then when you watch the TV show, that scene was cut, and Daemon just sort of just like stands there. He's not really the greatest father ever. Like, so that whole scene didn't happen in the books. In Fire and Blood, when Lena gives birth to Daemon's the last child that she has with him, right? So after they have the dragon twins, she very much is about to die, right? So she has just enough energy, and she tells Daemon, I want to go walk to Vhagar for one last ride. And instead of making it to Vhagar, she collapses on the serpentine stairs and dies, and then Daemon carries her back to the bed, and then she's burned, right? So in the TV show, very similar situation happens. She's giving a doggy-style birth, right? And the Pentoshi version of a maester comes up and says, I've exhausted all of my arts. We could save the child, but we could try to save the child, but the mother's going to die. And Daemon looks like he's sort of deciding this. And then Lena says, no, fuck that, and gets up out of bed and walks out to Vhagar, and that was probably one of the most gut-wrenching moments I've ever seen on screen. Like, she has to tell Vhagar Jacaerys multiple times, and you have to understand the dragon riders and their dragons have a connection that goes beyond something like your best friend or a bond that you would have with a sibling, or really anything like that. It's a spiritual and a mental connection. So she's telling her dragon, kill me, kill me. Yes, she's saying Jacaerys, but what she's actually saying is, in my life, I'm ready to move on to the next phase. End me, end me. And Vhagar's like, mama, no. What are you doing? Mama, no. I'm not going to kill you. I don't want to. But then ultimately she sees, Vhagar senses the emotion coming. She smells the blood off of Lena. She realizes that Lena is about to die and wants to take her own life into her own hands and go out in a blaze of glory. But yeah, so she does that. She gets burned. It was really hard to watch. But back to bad dragon daddy Daemon. I don't know why they completely cut that scene. It's one of my only complaints with this episode. I've had very few complaints with this series as a whole, because it's just been so fucking perfect and flawless, right? But Daemon's supposed to be humanized. He's not just a bad guy. Like, that scene should have been left in. It shows you that he does care about his kids. And then, what makes me think, and I'm going to go on a bit of a side tangent here, what makes me think that they wanted to make him colder to his children is Nettles is supposedly, potentially Daemon's daughter in the books, and she's someone who gets called into action in what will likely be season 2 of this show, when Rhaenyra decides she needs more dragon riders, right? So this is after Lucerys dies, this is after Blood and Cheese, and there's a bunch of people with potential dragon riding abilities around Dragonstone. So one of the people who's able to tame a dragon is Nettles. Nettles uses lamb and mutton and her ability as a quick and smart thinker, and tames the dragon sheep stealer by feeding it mutton. And she does this until it grows close to her, and then she mounts the dragon. So eventually what happens is, during the war, Daemon and Nettles begin to supposedly, depending on which version of the story you want to believe, start sleeping with each other. And in the books, Nettles is the muddy brown girl is what she's referred to, but she's most likely half black like myself, right? So that's the case. Her father could be potentially Daemon, and you gotta realize Daemon's 49 in the books when this happens, so he's lived a long life, and he definitely can have multiple bastard children that were never confirmed in the books. But the relationship between the two of them is supposed to be like a father-daughter type relationship, but then also you hear that they bathe together and that, you look at Daemon's past, especially on this show. What I'm getting at here is maybe they're going to take one of his daughters, Rhaena probably, and turn her into that version. Now, to be fair, the Moon Dancer plot wouldn't work because she has to fight and kill Sunfire. Moon Dancer kills Sunfire, and that's Rhaena's dragon. But it is possible to sort of make one of them Nettles. Like, that's really sick and twisted for this show, but like, it wouldn't be that far out of the ballpark. You guys watching this right now, anybody who wants to let me know their comments, tell me down below, like, how do you see the Nettles plot happening in House of the Dragon? Not just season 2 where we find out, there's a calling of the dragon seeds, but do you think her character may be, switched out and replaced for one of Daemon's daughters with Laena? Okay, so now let's talk about lines from the books. The best one, and is the direct line from the book, that happens in the first 10 minutes of the episode, is when Alicent summons Rhaenyra to look at little baby Joffrey and how he doesn't have any silver gold hair of the Targaryens, right? So, obviously, Rhaenyra and Viserys have a really funny moment. Viserys is told by Rhaenyra that she called her handmaiden a cunt, and then, Alicent is, gets the baby and has an exchange with Laenor, and she says, "Don't worry, keep trying, Laenor. Eventually you'll get one that looks like you." And that is a line pulled straight from the books, that is straight from Alicent's mouth, and it literally made me get rock hard when I heard it, right? It was awesome. And then another line from the books, and this is not exactly or as close as it was to the books, like the Alicent and Laenor scene. Like, Alicent doesn't directly say it to Laenor in the books, but it's insinuating that she did, because it's, she says Laenor's name in the sentence, so they don't come out. There's no POV, right? But that is literally what exactly happened in the book. So the other line is pretty close, is the idea that Viserys thinks that letting the strong boys grow up with his Targaryen sons will make them as close as brothers, because they fight, they learn to train together, and that when he mentions that line to his hand, Lionel Strong, that's pulled straight from the books as well, but ultimately you see it's going to backfire. The forced closeness is what makes them sort of hate each other, and they haven't exactly started hating each other yet, because Aegon is sort of best buddies with Jace when the opportunity strikes him, but you can see Criston Cole's wicked and hatefulness towards Rhaenyra is rubbing off on Aegon too, and eventually Aemond, and you're going to see that these children are very much innocent, and they're corrupted by their parents around them to sort of hate each other. What's gonna make this story so much more tragic and crazy to watch is like the sins of the father, or in this case the sins of the mother, and Criston Cole are passed on to the sins of the children. Now, what's interesting is that Jacaerys could potentially be Criston Cole's baby. Now, when you look at the older version, Harry Collette, who's playing Jacaerys, Jace for the most part of the show, obviously, until he dies, he looks stunningly like Criston Cole. So not only is Criston Cole a big fat meanie for picking on the little kids, but also he's picking on his son and may not even realize it. We didn't see Rhaenyra take the moon tea, so there's a strong possibility that Jacaerys may actually be Criston Cole's son. It's kind of hard to tell. The actor who's playing him right now doesn't exactly look like Criston Cole, but like I said, Harry Collette looks strikingly similar to the actor, Fabian Frankel, who's playing Criston Cole. He does also look like Ryan Cord, the actor who's playing Harwin, but I think the resemblance to Criston Cole is too much to ignore in this case. So Criston Cole is literally bullying his son. Okay, now a couple more scenes I want to talk about and things you may have missed, right? So Helena is confirmed to be a dreamer for this show. Now, she actually says straight up, Aemond will have to close an eye to gain a dragon. And she says it a lot. So much to the point where Alicent's like, I know, he'll have to close a dragon, or he'll have to close an eye to get a dragon. So basically, if you're unaware, most of the Targaryens who suffer from dragon dreams, which are these predictions of the future that torment them their entire life, they make them melancholic, and they basically allow them to have very few moments of actual happiness because they're tormented by these dreams, but they're basically predictions of the future. There are some Targaryens like Egg from Duncan Egg who thinks that he's Daenerys, right? So he sees Daenerys in the funeral pile with Khal Drogo walking out with baby dragons hatched from dragon eggs. So what he does at Summerhall is get all his family near him, and he's about to sacrifice all of them in a blood magic ritual sacrifice with the aid of some wizards from across the narrow sea to try to hatch dragons, right? And the plans go awry, and supposedly wildfire is involved, and everybody there dies except for Rhaegar. Rhaegar's born in this event, right? And Sir Duncan the Tall ends up saving Rhaegar. We see this picture from Mark Simonetti, right, of Duncan the Tall standing over Rhaegar being born, and it looks like he's heading back into the fire to go save more people. So these dragon dreams, like, I just gave you an example of how Dunk was forced to kill his best friend because of these dragon dreams, right? So Egg was tormented in Dunk and Egg books for right now. Dunk or Aegon rather doesn't necessarily have dragon dreams, but he probably gets them later. He probably, gets that dagger of ice and fire and finds out about the prophecy when he becomes king, because that's really when he starts to become obsessed with trying to bring dragons back into the world. So basically, Helena is very different in the books. Like, she basically might have a slight case of autism. For the TV show, they've kicked it up a little bit, and the reason why she's different and, seemingly melancholic as a child is because she gets these dragon dreams. She probably sees visions of what's about to happen with the Dance of the Dragons, and then when she gets older and she gets replaced by the actress Fia Saban, it's going to be a complete crazy, even more falling into the depths of the melancholy. And supposedly there's supposed to be a scene where Jace asks her for a dance, and she kind of has a crush on Jace, and Aegon too sees this and is offended because he's married to Helena and they have a couple children at this time. So it's gonna be pretty intense to watch. I will say that the fact that Viserys is getting drunk all the time to sort of help make the days go by easier, like he's drinking, a lot of the times, like when he's watching the lads fighting the yacht, that's sort of that's awesome for the show, because that's part of the reason why he ignores the writing on the wall, and his drunken stupor is what makes him think, oh yeah, everybody's good, man. It's all cool. All my family totally doesn't hate each other, and they're not going to be at each other next when I die. Everything's good. They love each other. Look, they just said it. They just said they love each other, right? Like, that's Viserys' mood, and they've got his character. They've turned who he is from the books into such an amazing sight to see on screen. I will say that in the next episode, he's going to look even worse. He's just gonna eventually, when he starts wearing this golden mask, is when we're gonna realize, oh yeah, he's at death's door. It's kind of crazy that no one is suspicious about the maesters around him. Like, do they just assume that all Targaryens just get deathly ill and start basically falling apart at the end? Like, obviously this is not normal what's happening to him. There should be a great amount of research and effort put into what the hell is wrong with the king, but it seems like no one really cares. It seems like they're kind of waiting for him to die so they could get on with the show. I don't know. You all let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Now, this is getting towards the end of this video, and I want to talk about the last thing, which is it's kind of a couple of things all put together, right? So Rhaenyra and Alicent were taken over by Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook, and I will say that for this episode to be how awesome it was, they did an amazing job. Like, I expected a little bit of a kind of a shock almost, right? It should technically feel like you're kind of watching a different show, because yes, the actresses look similar, but ultimately they're different people. So, that I expected that to take me out of the show, but it didn't. It actually was done pretty damn near perfect. Like, this is who you expect these characters to be after 10 years of that situation. You have to realize Alicent isn't at the point where she full out hates Rhaenyra, but it is getting there. It's getting really close, right? So Alicent was scorned initially by Rhaenyra when Rhaenyra lied to her, right? Rhaenyra said, on my mother, I didn't sleep with my uncle. And then Alicent's like, okay, I believe you, we're best friends. And then she finds out that was a lie. The lie detector test determined that was a lie, right? And then Alicent has to be woken up in the middle of the night to fuck the king. She has to be his hot pussy running on tap, hot or cold. Whenever he wants it, she has to go sleep with this nasty, disgusting king, right? He's not nasty and disgusting at first, but he is now. She's still popping out kids. She did what she has to do, and Rhaenyra is not doing what Rhaenyra has to do. Rhaenyra is actually doing what she wants to do. She's like doing the role of producing heirs, but she's sleeping with who she wants to. Alicent for this TV show is not doing that. So that's kind of like where most of the hatred comes in. It's very valid. You to get it from Alicent's point, it's like, dude, I had to do this. What makes you think you're any different and you don't have to do this, right? But then from Rhaenyra's side is that she is not like Alicent. She's not from House Hightower. She's from House Targaryen and she's a dragon. She should be able to fuck who she wants and marry who she wants because she's the blood of the dragon, right? So that rivalry, once again, has been turned out to a 10 for this show. I can't wait to see how it unfolds, especially when their children start hurting each other. When the hatred that they spew and the venom they spew at each other starts leaking into their kids, and the individuals they have surrounding them that also have hatred for people on the Queen's party and people on the Princess's party, that all starts affecting their kids, and that's when they realize shit gets serious, and I can't wait to see that dynamic unfold on this next episode. I will say that I did not expect to go full-on black like I did this episode. Like Alicent, it just shows you how good of a job Olivia Cook is doing. Alicent, in my book, for the first 5 episodes, was like, if I was in middle school, if I was making a list of my top 5, Alicent would be in my top 5. If I was on MySpace, she would be in my top 5 friends. But after this episode, Alicent who? Alicent top 5 nothing. I don't even know the bitch, right? So like, it's crazy. It's gonna be really, really awesome to watch. Okay, so just to remind you all, I think the Firefly thing is pretty much dead on for why Laurie's what this is, right? Because a firefly, in my opinion, spiritually means like you can't have light without the dark. A firefly represents settling down and realizing to appreciate the small things in nature, right? But in a more spiritual context, and for this show specifically, it's meant to tread the line of dark and light. Like, you can't have goodness without doing bad things, because you wouldn't know what the good things were without doing the bad things. So this is very much what Lares is an agent of light and dark. And like, in the books, it's literally mentioned to this day in 300 AC, so 173 years after the events of the Dance of Dragons, no one knows what Lares' motivation is. Lares the Clubfoot, no one knows what his motivation is. I will say that when he dies in the end, he asks for his clubfoot to be removed, so that will probably have something to do with it. All right, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Watch out for my cum. I'm jacking off from planes and shit. Leave me a comment down below. Oh man, trying to say that with a straight face. But leave me a comment down below and let me know some of your thoughts on what I mentioned in this video. Please help me defeat and beat the crap out of YouTube for shadow banning my channel. And the way you can do that is by subscribing, helping me reach that goal of 100,000 again here on YouTube, interacting with my video, so slapping a like on it, like was going to be 420, leaving a comment down below letting me know your thoughts about what I mentioned in this video, or just literally, a lot of people, and I love reading these, is when someone just says a comment for the algorithm, because they know you're like, yo, that helps out your video, and I just watched it and it's something I can do, but anyway, all that aside, if you can't do any of that stuff, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it to this point and listening to my voice. Special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/HuntReviews. And if you want to consider joining that, you should. There's exclusive content that's uploaded only to Patreon. Right now, I've got a 20-minute rant of me talking about how I potentially think Longclaw may be Dark Sister, and then also talking about Sam's, in the book, in Feast for Crows, Sam's adventure in Bravos, right? So, I'm going to continue to upload exclusive content every couple of days there, so consider checking it out and joining. You can join for as little as $1 and stuff. But thank you for watching.
Zadrizes buzdaris kosdau.
If you enjoyed these videos and you enjoy my content, please do me a massive favor and slap a like on it. Like it was going to be 420, but the most important thing, the thing I'm begging you to do, is to subscribe. I'm really close to hitting 100,000 here on YouTube, and if you're unaware, basically when you're being shadow banned, like my channel, which means my videos don't show up in the ranking system, don't show up in YouTube's algorithm, for some reason they're being suppressed, right? The one way to ultimately combat that is to hit 100,000 subs and be verified, because then I'll be put in touch with someone at YouTube and I'll be able to get some answers as to what's going on with my videos. All that aside, this video right here is a condensed version of the 2-hour live stream I did last night, right after the episode aired. And I always suggest people to go watch that, because anything I don't mention in these videos probably mentioned over there, you know, when I live streamed last night, and I probably talked about it for a good chunk of time, so that's why I didn't reference or mention it in this video. So please, go and check that out. I'm actually, maybe by the time this video's up, I should have time-stamped that live stream so you can click around to the parts that you want to hear the most. But like I said, that's initially right after I watched the episode. I know there are a lot of YouTubers who get the episode early, and then they're allowed to watch it a few days in advance, and then they put their review out, you know, last night. I don't do that. I watch it just like you all. I watch it when it comes out, so these breakdowns take me several hours to make, and usually most of the time I'm staying up all night. But anyway, consider checking out my Patreon. Before I jump into this, it is a way to get super extra content. I've uploaded to Patreon several times in the past week or so. Oh yeah, and real quick, this is probably something you all noticed, but I think I figured out where potentially Adam of Hull can come from. Aegon! My man, I love you, bro. But, like, he's flirting with the handmaid. Like, his version of flirting. He's basically making her stand by him the whole time, and then he gets drunk. And then we kind of don't see what happens between them. Like, he's ultimately found by Sir Otto and sort of choked up to wake up. I think he may have potentially gotten hammered and then hooked up with her. Remember, this guy likes jacking off in front of windows. There's no way he didn't take liberties with this handmaiden. And potentially, maybe, the two of them consummated, and then they make a bastard known as Adam of Hull. Now, that's a crazy tinfoil theory, because Adam of Hull is from the shipyards, Marilyn of Hull is in the shipyards, but she could have started out as a handmaid and, you know, got disgraced by Aegon and then went to work there. You all let me know what you think about this down below in the comment section. I think I'm just paying into it too much, but he definitely banged that handmaid. He said he loves long-legged women and then walked off to go chase after the handmaid. My favorite scene of last night's episode, Aemond claiming Vhagar. Like, obviously the kids have a pummel fest after that, right? They all start beating the shit out of each other, but ultimately, Aemond claiming Vhagar was better than I expected. It was better than in the books, right? So in the books, Aemond sneaks out at nighttime, goes and claims Vhagar, and, like, it's mentioned, you know, in the book, when you're reading Fire and Blood, it's mentioned, like, oh yeah, even though Aemond is a prince, is a Targaryen prince, and he's of the dragon blood, right? There's still dangers when approaching a dragon, especially one that has recently lost its rider like Vhagar. So that's pretty much all you get. Ultimately, he claims Vhagar, and it's a massive loss for the Blacks. For the TV show, they took it 40 steps further, and it was fucking worth it, right? So Aemond doesn't necessarily waste any time. As soon as he hears that dragon roar, right, Syrax, I believe, or not Syrax, it's most likely Caraxes, lets out a roar to signal to all of the dragon riders, hey, the sun's going down. Thought that was really cool. And that's when Aemond springs into action. He's like, yo, I'm going to go get the biggest, baddest dragon in the land. And he sneaks, and then grabs the rope, and then the dragon's like, are you sure you want to do this, boy? Are you sure you want to do this, right? It's amazing. I genuinely enjoyed the flight scene. It was several minutes. It was awesome. Like, I don't know if Miguel Sapochnik watches YouTube videos or breakdowns or reads articles or whatever, but the shots in House of the Dragon the shots in season 8 of Game of Thrones, episode 3, right? So the battle for Winterfell. There were several shots where Daenerys' dragons are flying above the skies, and you see the moon in the background. Like, at one point, you see Daenerys on Drogon and the Night King on Viserion, and they're squaring off. And if I'm not mistaken, Miguel Sapochnik, the ex-showrunner who's now a producer, the guy that directed last night's episode, also directed season 8, episode 3. And even if he didn't, it doesn't matter. It's besides the point. I'll put it up on the screen for you. It just had some amazing callbacks to that episode, because that scenery and that imagery of, like, dragons fighting in the night sky is just very powerful. Very, very powerful. I will say that Vhagar's size is immense. Like, they showed you how Vhagar is so big and powerful, but ultimately we're getting teasers for the battle above the God's Eye, because we're seeing how long it takes Vhagar to sort of start to, climb up in the air. And that's key and quintessential to what happens when Vhagar and Aemon goes out, right? This video is called Things You May or May Not Have Missed. Obviously, I try to go through. Last night, I pulled all the stuff in my live stream that I could recall off of memory and explained what happened in the books, and then obviously what happened on the TV show. So last night, when Corlys is talking with his wife, Rhaenys, and Rhaenys is basically like, our daughter's dead. I really don't want to have this conversation right now about the line of succession, right? She juxtaposes, like she propositions Corlys to name Laena's daughters as the heirs to Driftmark. What's really funny is, even though Corlys denies that, and he's like, history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names, and like, they are Jacaerys Velaryon, they're Lucerys Velaryon, they're named of my house, right? History's not going to remember that they're bastards, right? That's basically what he's saying. Right before that, he mentions to his wife, because Rhaenys says, like, oh, on tonight's of all nights, let's not talk about this. He says, oh, I'm sorry, you had a crown plucked from your head. Is it not my job as your husband to defend your claim? And then she's like, dude, not tonight, right? But then when she brings it up, which is basically the same thing that happened to her at the Great Council of 101 AC, he has the opportunity to name his grandchildren, right? Rhaena and Baela, he has the chance to name them as his heirs, which is basically to right a wrong, kind of similar to what happened at the Great Council 101 AC. But guess what? He says no. He does the same thing they did there with Rhaenys. They skipped Rhaenys because she's a female. He's literally skipping over his granddaughters because they're female. And that's probably something that, you obviously got from watching it, but I just thought it was crazy ironic that this dude was like, I'm just defending your claim, wife. Lord, I have the opportunity to kind of do it now, and I'm not. And I understand what Corlys is saying. It's like, if he had done that, it would cast Rhaenyra and her children aside. It would cast a crazy shadow. It would kind of confirm the rumors that her kids aren't hers. And you know what's really funny? Rhaenyra's fucking lines to Daemon when they go walk off right before they start making love. Literally, she says, I at least tried to maintain appearances. What the heck are you talking about? No, you didn't. You fucked someone with black hair. What? What appearance did you try to maintain, Rhaenyra? Please tell me. Please tell me what appearance. Oh man, the irony of these characters, it shows you that not only are humans flawed and no one is, all the way good or all the way bad, but these characters are terrible. Like, they're tragic. Like, they are so hypocritical. They don't even realize what's coming out of their mouth half the time. One thing that I really saw, we were just kind of talking about Rhaenyra's bastard children, with Lucerys, this was really cool. When Corlys talks to Lucerys and says, one day, lad, this will all be yours. Really interesting scene, because right after that, if you remember, Lucerys says, I don't want it. I don't want it. Remember, Jon Snow had that line like 3 times in the last season? Like, he's like, I don't want it. I don't want the crown. That's awesome. And there's something there, in my opinion, and I'm probably, going off on too much of a tangent here, or reading into it too much, but I feel like the fact that a half Firstman and half Targaryen refused the crown repeats heavily in the books. Like, obviously, Jon Snow is blood of the Firstman. He's half Stark, and then he's also half Targaryen on his father's side, Rhaegar, right? So he's got the same DNA composition as Lucerys, and he doesn't want it. And then, if you'll remember, Bloodraven, right? Bloodraven is half Blackwood, so he's half blood of the Firstman, half Targaryen. And he technically never, sits the Iron Throne, but by going to the Wall willingly and staying up there, after he goes north and becomes the Three-Eyed Crow, it's kind of a theme. Like, the best mix for a ruler is someone who's half Targaryen and half blood of the Firstmen, because then you have that strong connection to the Firstmen that were in Westeros, and then also the Targaryens who came over to sort of help prevent the Long Night and unite Westeros. So you have connections, long-running deep roots in Westeros. And also, the greatest ruler, for the most part, is someone who doesn't want to do it. They realize how great of a responsibility it is. And Lucerys mentions, like, yo, if I'm the Lord of Tides, then everybody else is dead. right? That means all of the people that I love and care about, all the people I grew up with, are dead. So something about having the blood of the First Men and the blood of the Targaryens, the Valyrians, running through you makes you make wiser decisions. And if you're unaware, the connection I'm making is how Strong claims and boasts of their blood of the First Men. They're the rulers of Harrenhal, and Harwin is Lucerys' father. Okay, so and then also at the very beginning of the episode, I think it's like 4 minutes 19 seconds, 4:20. At 4:20 in the episode, haha, that's the like goal for this video. Please slap a like on it. But at 4:20 in the episode, we get our first glimpse of count 'em, baby. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dragons on screen. This is crazy. All right, so way off in the left-hand corner, we have, I believe that's Vhagar, right? And then the long neck, long body, weird shape, long leg, sharp fin, shark fin boy. Right? That could actually be Melee's up there in the corner, right? But why would Rhaenys be riding her dragon when she literally lives at the location they are currently at, right? High tide. Or Driftmark, right? So there's quite a bit of confusion in between those two locations. But that's besides the point. So we got probably Vhagar up in the corner. We got Caraxes right above the castle. And then that's Dreamfire. That's Helena's dragon. And Dreamfire is responsible for laying so many clutch of eggs. She's like the mother of a lot of dragons. Like the mother of Daenerys' dragons in particular. This is why she looks so much like Drogon. We saw her when Aemon went into the dragon pit and got scared in the pink dread, right? In that whole scene in the last episode. Then, in the bottom right, that is our first image of Sunfire the Golden, the most beautiful dragon to ever exist in Westeros. I am so excited. I am everybody's in mourning in this scene, and I am mourning the fact that we didn't get more of a close-up of Sunfire. Oh my gosh. That's Rhaenyra and Syrax in the back, and she just landed, because right after this we have, Rhaenyra showing up to the party on, her sons are already there. They already rode their dragons there. But this is awesome. Sunfire the Golden, I love you. I love everything about Aegon's character, but this was really cool. Really cool. Dragons in the sky. Dragons mean you die. You better watch out, because dragons rule the sky. The deep fans know that I made that song, right? I didn't make it. It's Ariel's, but I sang about dragons. And it was like one of my favorite things that I just made up for a video. So yeah, that's really cool. Dragons, baby! For this next part, I want to talk about the scene where, Helena's playing with the spider and then ultimately crunches the spider. The saying, the little prayer she says, right? Helena suffers from dragon dreams. And to briefly explain, Targaryens and Valyrians are plagued with these dreams. We would assume that the Valyrians of the Valyrian Freehold had these abilities as well, right? For the most part, any race that has some sort of special ability, it's usually a similar type of thing. So the Valyrian sorcerers would use black candles to speak across long distances, and they would also be plagued with, since they touched in fire and blood magic, they were also plagued by these dreams, right? And, for the most part, everybody that has these dreams, that's a Targaryen in the main story, and in this show, they're changing canon a little bit and giving characters dreams that didn't necessarily have them, or they may have had them, right? So it's kind of rumored that Helena's a little bit off. She's not all the way there, and that's because she has these dragon dreams, and Aegon called her an idiot, right? So basically anybody that has these are tormented by them. And if you want a more in-depth, I went on a 20-minute rant last night, which is the link to this video in my live stream. That's linked down below in the descriptions. But basically, it's just a premonition of the future. And a lot of the times, the visions that the Targaryens get that have these dragon dreams, they have the dreams twisted and manipulated, and they feel as though they are actually in the dream themselves. So they'll misinterpret them and think that, for instance, Aegon the Unlikely thought that he was Daenerys and killed his whole family because he thought that when she brought back dragons and walked out of the funeral pile, he thought that was him because he could feel the same emotions as her. So these dragon dreams are crazy. But literally, what Helena's doing is not that mysterious. She's killing the spider. She's saying a spool of red, a spool of green. A tapestry is being made, basically. And that tapestry is declaring war between the two factions of House Targaryen. right? So you have the queen's party and the princess's party. So, the greens and the blacks. The queen is the green and the princess is the blacks, right? So that's literally what Helena's saying. And then right as she says that and slaps the shell shut on the spider, killing the spider, like laying her trap, the camera cuts to Alicent, yes, but more importantly, Larys. Larys is playing both sides, but he's not exactly telling, Alicent. I will say that Buddy does not care if he stares. He just doesn't care at all. Like, he's just straight up staring at her, and it's really funny. So, the spider, in that metaphor that Helena is giving, is Larry's, right? So, Varys the spider. Larry's is very much a spider. His heraldry is different, right? He's of House Strong, right? But he doesn't use that. He uses a firefly, right? I talked about that in my last episode 6 breakdown. But basically, that firefly in nature is a symbol of light and dark. You can't have light without the darkness. And if firefly is not consistently lit, the light goes in and out. So Larys doesn't necessarily do fully dark things. He does light things as well, but he is still treading that path in between, and that's what the firefly sigil represents. And here's a quick complaint with the episode. Like, last night in my live stream, initially when I watched this episode, it was kind of crazy. They faked out Laena's death. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that stray away from canon equals a ripple effect that has, unless they do it the right way and carefully, it could screw up like a lot in this show, right? Because Laena was supposed to die because Sea Smoke is written by another character, Adam of Hull, and he plays a pretty quintessential role in the Dance of the Dragons. Like, literally, when you don't kill Laena and you fake his death, a dragon's rider has to die for the dragon to accept a new rider. Like, the previous rider has to have the bond destroyed. And I guess you could argue that Sea Smoke will just be abandoned by Laenor and that'll break the bond. But I think ultimately Laenor still will die. And like I said, I want to talk about that here in a second. But the complaint is that we still have not got Mushroom. What the heck, dude? Like, we saw this Mushroom type character, right? It was a dwarf in episode 5, but there was no confirmation that was Mushroom. Mushroom was at Laena's funeral. In the books, Mushroom is the one who tells us, hey, Aegon actually said, we all know it, Father. Just look at them. That was a line straight from the books. I love that line. Aegon. I want to talk about Aegon in a second. But, like, Mushroom, where is he? Where is he? Let me know down below. Like, are you guys upset, just like I am, that Mushroom has not had a line of dialogue or anything, or he might not even exist, or he would have been the guy drumming at the wedding? That was the first dwarf we've seen on this show, but it's just like, what the hell? Where's Mushroom? We need him. We need to see his giant cock on screen. Like, he says he's got a big head, and everybody likes his version of the story the best, in my opinion. Like, his version of the story is the best version of Fire and Blood. So let's talk about Aegon real quick. So, I just mentioned him. Aegon says, we all know it, Father. Just look at them. Aegon's story is tragic. Like, not quite as tragic as Aemon. Aemon is my favorite character on the Greens, by far, right? But Aegon, he kind of just gets, everybody hits him for no reason. People are here like he gets drunk, and then he gets hit by his grandpa. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he literally gets, Aegon gets blamed for, being the source of the rumors of the Rhaenyra's children being strong bastards. And it's like, what is he doing? He's a little bit of a butthole, but he just, like, keeps getting beat up by everybody. And it's like, I don't like it. I don't like it. It makes me have more sympathy than I should for his character, because he does some things in the future that are really, you know what? Let me stop that rant right there. It's perfect, because I always say this. I love saying this. Every single character in this story is gray. They're not black or white. They're somewhere in between. Like the Firefly reference, that's like most characters. Like, Alicent is told by Rhaenyra she hides behind her cloak of righteousness. But hey, guess what? You're just as bad as everybody else. The worst thing she did was allow Larys to kill his, father and brother. And you could argue that, she didn't directly say, hey, Larys, go burn down your father, while he's sleeping, and kill him and allow my father to come down his hand. But she literally did that. She kept saying to him, she got mad at Larry's in that conversation they had over dinner where she's like, no, but my father will have my back. And basically when she said that, and the determination and the input that Larry's picked up from her when she was putting it down is a roundabout way of saying, yes, I will do whatever I need to get my father back into the court, into the king's good graces. And the only way to do that is by removing the current hand. Lionel Strong, Larry's his father, right? And also, Harwin. It's going to be really interesting to watch these characters flip back and forth. Like, it is so crazy that they can go, in my opinion, in one episode, from me hating them at the beginning of the episode to me feeling something for them halfway through, and then by the end, oh, they're my new favorite. Like, that's what's so great about this show. Now, the next part I want to talk about is a dual tandem one, right? So, Rhaenyra and Daemon having sex on the beach while Vhagar's being stolen. Really intense scene. Like, the sex scene was very tasteful. It's interesting because Miguel Sapochnik, as a man, directed this episode, and the sex scene was almost as equally tasteful as when Claire Kilner directed the episode, where Rhaenyra tries to hook up with Daemon and then ultimately hooks up with Cole. Both of those two sex scenes are very tasteful, right? I will say that I kind of hoped we would get to see Rhaenyra's titties, but we didn't. So maybe there's a chance we get to see them later on in the show. I mean, that's just a personal thing of mine that I'm sure there's other people that agree with me. Also, the wedding. Holy crap, that was. I didn't realize that they drank that much blood. Like that's a vampire Valyrian ceremony. Also, their kids in the background are permanently scarred from this, right? One thing that may be interesting is because they sort of forced their kids to watch this marriage. I wouldn't be surprised if Daemon's children, who literally don't really look anything like him, but the children that he has with Laena, the dragon twins, Baela and Rhaena, I don't know if they made them twins on the show. I think Rhaena's a little bit older than Baela. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have some anonymity towards their father for marrying Rhaenyra right in front of them, literally a few days after their mother's funeral and after Laenor dies. And those two girls are probably going to hate Daemon a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of just think of him as a parental figure, but not like a father, right? That's kind of how I feel their relationship should be because of what Daemon's been doing. But mind you, time sort of heals all wounds, and there's another time jump in this next episode. We get to finally, been waiting for this. I love seeing the younger versions of the actors. I love seeing the build up to the character, but I want to see the characters that we're going to know for the rest of this series, because we're only going to have a few more seasons with them, because at most I think the show's only going to be 4 seasons. So I cannot wait to finally watch our boy Aemon Milf Hunter once the Alice Rivers doesn't give a Aemon. I cannot wait to see him on screen. It's so dope. The dude playing him, Ewan Mitchell, played Baby Monk on The Last Kingdom. So that's really amazing. He did a really good job on that show. And I feel like he's going to be like I just said before, Aemon's my favorite character. Aemon riding Vhagar is my favorite scene in its entirety from this show. I love Daemon beating the crap out of all of the Triarchy down in the Stepstones, and he goes hard as hell, but something about Aemon flying Vhagar, there's just something majestic about riding a dragon. I was literally screaming with him, when he's hanging on by the ropes and Vhagar's taking off and he's hanging on for dear life and Vhagar's basically testing him and seeing okay, you mounted me, you ride me, but are you ready for this, baby? And she cuts through a flock of seagulls, and the seagulls almost whip at his face, and he's like, oh crap, and then she dives down. It's that whole scene was just amazing, so good. But I feel another thing that I want to talk about, sorry for going on that rant, is Vaemond Velaryon is definitely baiting Rhaenyra in what he says in High Valyrian at Laena's funeral. He basically says, our blood runs thick. I know that your children are not from our blood because our blood runs so thick that your children would look like us. Both of the kids' parents have white hair, but they don't. So Vaemond is basically setting himself up to get his head chopped off and then fed to Syrax in the next episode, because that's what happens in the books. Vaemond is literally, like, a lot of people, and myself included, kind of get him mixed up with the Silent Five, because the Silent Five are Velaryon cousins, but Vaemon in this show is not a Velaryon cousin, or a nephew rather. He's actually the younger brother of Corlys. So he has a very legitimate claim to Driftmark. And what ends up happening in the books is Rhaenyra finds out that he's making these claims and wants to usurp, Driftmark from her. So Daemon gets dispatched by Rhaenyra to go out and kill Vaemon Velaryon, cut his head off, and then his carcass is fed to Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon. So that sort of takes care of that. And then there's more people, obviously, in House Velaryon, and the cousins are the ones who take up Vaemon's claim. And they go and see Viserys. And remember, Viserys just said in this episode, anybody who says the thing that nobody should be saying, which is basically Rhaenyra's children are legitimate. If anybody says they aren't legitimate, he's going to take off their tongues. And that's what he does to the Silent Five, is he ends up taking their tongues, and it's going to be really intense to watch. Finally, Viserys will start to have some balls. In the next episode, we saw that he's, from a teaser that we got a few weeks ago, that he's wearing that mask, and I'm showing you that picture right now. So he's just going to continue to fall apart. And the last couple things I want to talk about for this video, remember, if there's anything that you think I missed, I probably didn't. I probably mentioned it in my live stream and went on a really good tangent and rant, and I want more people to start watching those live streams, because that's sort of the best way to get my who I am as a content creator, because you can see, like, yeah, I'm spaced out in those live streams, but it really, I just go watch the live stream. Anything that you think I missed or didn't talk about in this video is probably mentioned in that live stream. So the fighting of the kids, that was really good. Like, we saw Lucerys, we saw Jacaerys, Rhaena, and Baela all try to beat Aemon, and Aemon ended up getting the better of, well, most of them, right? So it's really cool. Leo Ashton said, like, this scene is kids pummeling each other. Leo Ashton is the actor who's playing a younger version of Aemon. And I will say the sound effects were intense. It was like I was watching a kung fu movie from the 70s. It was like whoosh, 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 whoosh. It was nuts. That's how it sounds when you're smacking the shit out of someone in real life. So that was really cool. Another thing, and this is kind of like something that we've already sort of, I've mentioned several times, is the fake out death. Like, this does not happen in the books. Laenor in the books is killed by Carl Corey because Carl Corey gets jealous of Laenor getting a new favorite. So Carl Corey kills Laenor in a duel and then escapes, but then is killed at the Narrow Sea. So the rumors surrounding that are that Daemon hired Carl Corey to kill Laenor in order to open Rhaenyra up for marriage. That's kind of what happened in the TV show, but not really, because Laenor's still alive. Laenor shaved his head. We knew this was coming. We saw pictures while they were filming of him in the boat with Carl Corey with his head shaved. So we thought, hey, that's kind of weird because he's wearing a costume very much that's in scene. Like, he's filming with a bald head, so something is going on there. What I think, and I if you want more in depth, obviously go watch the live stream, but what I think is happening with that is they wanted to basically allow a character some sort of happiness in this gloomy story. But ultimately, Sea Smoke and the bond that Laenor has, the only thing that can sever that is death. In the books, in canon, the only thing that can sever a dragon rider's bond with another rider, a dragon and its rider, the only thing that severs that bond is death. Either the death of the rider or the death of the dragon, right? And even when the dragon dies and the rider survives, no rider has ever taken on two dragons, ever. That's why Daenerys is going to have to find two other riders for her dragons, because she's already bonded with Drogon. So yes, she is the mother of Viserion and Rhaegal, but she'll eventually have to find new riders. She'll have to find riders for them, because she can't control her dragons. Like, a dragon is at its best when it's being ridden by a rider. So two minds are better than one, kind of thing. In canon, Adam of Hall rides Sea Smoke, and that helps strengthen his claim that he's actually Laenor's bastard son. And Corlys legitimizes Adam of Hall and Alan Oakenfist Velaryon, right? He legitimizes them, but Laenor's gay. Everyone knows this. Laenor never showed an interest in women, so they're likely Corlys' bastards. But Adam of Hall has to ride Sea Smoke, one way or another. Either Laenor just rides off in the sunset, we figure out that he spent so much time away from his dragon that the connection they had was ended, right, or spurned, like Sea Smoke thought he was actually dead. So that could be a thing, and then maybe Laenor will come back. It just doesn't make sense. Like, if they're going to sort of, if they're going to sort of just allow him to ride off into the sunset, he either needs to stay gone from the show and not participate in the dance, which would just be crazy, especially when the dance kicks up, or he just is allowed a temporary relapse and is allowed to have happiness somewhat, but then ultimately dies. Or Carl Corey. It's insinuated in that conversation that Carl Corey has with Damon that Carl is like obviously looking for, a new patron. Like he needs someone to pay his way in the world because he's just a landless knight, which is basically someone who was promoted to the title of knighthood, but they don't actually have any lands with them to, give them more of a higher up in society. So there's potential for Laenor to be killed later on, and they just sort of wanted to give a moment of happiness, not just for his character on the TV show, but also for the audience. It's like not every single Velaryon is going to die every episode, because ultimately Lucerys Velaryon is going to die, in the next couple of episodes as well. So that could be why they did this. And yes, it does diverge from canon. Yes, it is scary because it ultimately could make a ripple effect of something similar that happened with the main Game of Thrones show by cutting someone as small as Jane Poole, right? It could be a ripple effect that adds for terrible writing decisions that have to be made because of this choice in the first season, but that's probably just my fears getting the better of me. The amount of work and effort and energy and time that the showrunners, the writers, the directors have all put into this show, I have the utmost faith that this writing choice will come back and pay off greatly. And at this point, I've covered and talked about probably everything that happened in that episode between this video and my live stream last night. Please, if you enjoy my content, slap a like on it. Like goal is going to be 420. And then also, make sure you subscribe and turn those notifications all the way on. It's at a 10, but turn it on to an 11, because 11's louder. And that way, you'll get alerted every single time I go live here on YouTube, or whenever I drop a video. The most important thing, I'm going to be entertaining you all throughout the long night, which is the wait from House of the Dragon Season 1 to Season 2, which is also the wait for Game of Thrones to the Jon Snow show, for Dance with Dragons to the Winds of Winter. I continuously put out content. And also, so make sure you subscribe, right? And then if you want to go a little bit further and you want even more exclusive patron-only content, like initially I was going to upload some of that content here to YouTube, but I've decided not to. YouTube can't censor me on my Patreon. So I get to say whatever I want. I get to talk how I want. I get to use my own colorful language and don't have to worry about being demonetized. So that is what you get if you join my Patreon. And you can join it for as little as $1. And there's 3 clips, 3 podcast episodes that have never been uploaded to YouTube. So you can go listen to those right now for as little as $1. But if you can't do any of that, thank you for watching. So, please, if you can, do those things, slap a like, subscribe, check out my Patreon. But if you can't do any of that, thank you, like I just said, for watching. That's the best thing you can do for anybody that you like here on YouTube.
Zadrizes buzdari skozdau.
Hey, so in this video, we've all just watched the greatest episode of House of the Dragon so far. But okay, so episodes 4 and 5 are pretty dang close. But this, episode 8, was amazing. And in this video, I'm going to talk about 11 different things that you may or may not have missed. If you want an hour and a half worth of content on episode 8, I just dropped it last night, go check out my live stream. YouTube demonetized it because I'm a nerd talking about nerdy stuff, and I guess that deserves to be demonetized. But anyway, check out my Patreon if you want a little bit of extra content. Over there, I have an exclusive podcast called Leaks and Lore, and you can join for as little as $1. And also, lastly, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 420. And then, make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications on. We've only got 2 episodes left of House of the Dragon Season 1, and Season 2 will likely not be airing until 2024. I will guaranteed drop at least 3 to 4 videos a week until that time. So do yourself a favor if you enjoy my content and subscribe. Okay, so the first thing I need to talk about, and this is something that you'll notice when you rewatch the series, right? So the cycle of abuse that has turned Aegon into this hiding rapist, right? So basically when Diana is telling
Alicent the story of what happened between her and Aegon in his chambers. She's basically questioning, like, you need to tell me the truth right now. Basically, I believe you, but no one else will. Like, you were alone with the king, and with Aegon too, with the prince, so it's possible that you wanted this to happen, right? So we find out that Aegon is there when she first enters, and this is the handmaid that dresses as kids, which is even more messed up, right? We find out when Diana enters the room, she sees Aegon, turns around, he disappears, then he rapes her, right? Then, she is forced to drink moon tea. But one thing of note, and as a side note, a super side note, because I am talking about the history of abuse between House Hightower and how it's passed down and turned Aegon to who he is. But as a side note, that handmaid who brings in the moon tea for Diana, we find out at the end of the episode, she is an informant for Mysaria. Probably that moon tea didn't work. Probably Aegon 2 has bastards everywhere. We actually seen one in the episode 9 teaser, but I don't want to talk about that right now. So let's get back on track. Alicent, history of abuse. We see that her father abuses her. She initially, in the first couple of episodes, especially at the first episode at the turning, she's picking her nails. That is a sign of abuse. She's been abused by her father. He hits her, right? She then carries that abuse on to Aegon. She still smacks him, right? And Aemond sort of doesn't get the grunt of it because he kind of just falls in line, being the third born child of her and Viserys. You know, we sort of see Aegon pass on that abuse to Aemond in the form of like, hey, he hasn't claimed a dragon. Let's embarrass him by dressing up this pig and saying, this is your time to shine. Go fly this pig. I heard the first flight's rough, right? So the history of abuse starts all the way back, and we notice this in episode 3, right, of House of the Dragon season 1. We notice this when Hobart Hightower, Sir Otto's older brother, is talking to him, and Daemon tells us that Sir Otto is his second son, right? Sir Hobart is the head of House Hightower, and because of that, Sir Otto was forced to become the hand of the king, which argue he's got more power than the head of House Hightower right now. But anyway, Hobart sort of lets us know that he abuses Sir Otto. Sir Otto then abuses his daughter. Sir Otto also abuses Aegon the Two. And all of that abuse is sort of amalgamated into turning Aegon II to who he is. Like, he keeps saying, I didn't want any of this. And his actions say that even louder because he's doing, disgraceful things like raping handmaidens. But to be fair, lots of kings did that. Lots of kings had bed warmers. I mentioned in my live stream breakdown, speaking of which, if you don't enjoy these shorter videos, check that out. I did a live stream last night for an hour and a half. It's linked down below in the description, and I did a full-out breakdown, talked about every single thing that happened in the episode, and then some. And mostly, I reference what goes on in the TV show and what goes on in the books, but that's linked down below in the description. So, what I mentioned was that Aegon really, he's so messed up mentally, he doesn't realize him being a prince allows him to get any ass he wants. He could literally just have walked the handmaiden outside and be like, yeah, you see that right there? That's my dragon Sunfire. You see this right here? This is my castle. It's my dad's castle, right? I am Prince of the Blood. Want to see my dick? Like, he could have easily done that instead of raping her, and I'm pretty sure she would have, like, felt the obligation. Anyway, let's move on. The history of violence and abuse is passed on to every single member of House Hightower, and this show is successfully making the Greens more humanized. Because when you read Fire and Blood, you realize, oh, Alicent literally just usurps the throne from Rhaenyra because of Rhaenyra's bastards. In this show, Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship is so much more dynamic. They start out as best friends, and Alicent always has this overwhelming sense of duty. This is why she continues to provide heirs to the king. She does her job, and she gets mad at Rhaenyra, and that turns into hatred, and then eventually love, and like more hate, right? But all of that aside, Alicent does her duties, and Rhaenyra, to an extent, does not. So this is what we have added on from, the books, is all these different layers of complexity. It's like, no, they don't necessarily just hate each other because one has bastards and one has legitimate heirs. It's more like they were friends, and then, Rhaenyra feels betrayed because Alicent marries her father right after Aemma Arryn dies. It's not even a half a year before that marriage is announced, so their relationship is very much more complex, and I just love the show. I love everything about it. If you all agree with the history of abuse that I established for the Greens, let me know down below in the comment section. Is there something that I missed? I'm pretty sure Hobart Hightower was likely abused by their father, and then he obviously abused his younger brother Sir Otto, and Sir Otto passed it on to not only his daughter, but his grandchildren, and sort of formed them into who they are. And Aemon is a product of all of that, because he may not have been directly hit by Alicent or Aegon or their grandfather Sir Otto, and obviously not King Viserys, but he gets the grunt of all that because he was tortured and bullied his entire life by Aegon and then also Lucerys and Jacaerys. Okay, so now on to some things that you may not have noticed. Like I mentioned, the handmaiden that brings in the moon tea for Diana to drink via Alicent is actually working for Mysaria, right? And then just to clarify, this episode is 6 years after the last episode, and this is the final time jump. These characters in their iterations and how we see them now on screen is how they're going to be for the rest of the series until they die, right? So that is really exciting. We're finally getting the actual kickoff of the war. Like, yes, it was tragic to watch Viserys die, but this is the gut, this is the heart, this is the body and soul of this story, and it's finally begun. Like, it's crazy when you go back and watch the earlier episodes and you're like, oh man, the realm is like really peaceful right now, and like really, it's going to be hard to see how far down House Targaryen will crumble because ultimately the story is about how they lose their dragons. So it's just so amazing, right? So one of the things, aside from the handmaiden, is that Alicent ends up seeing the scar on Rhaenyra's wrist when they first see each other. So remember, it's been 6 years, and Alicent looks at Rhaenyra and Daemon. She says, Prince Daemon, Prince Rhaenyra, right? And she sees Rhaenyra's scar on her wrist that Alicent caused. Alicent cut her in the wrist. That's one thing you may not have noticed because it's been 6 years and that scar is kind of healed up, right? So Rhaenyra immediately adjusts her dress and pulls that scar in, sort of like a wound, as she doesn't want to show it to Alicent. And the same thing happened in the last episode of Driftmark, right? In episode 7, when Rhaenyra first shows up there, Alicent looks at her and she's just had a baby, right? So she's about to have another baby, and she's sort of still has the pregnancy weight on her, and that's something that's in the books is why George wrote it in that Alicent was able to retain her beauty and lose the baby weight almost immediately, whereas Rhaenyra sort of suffered with it, and she had to carry that baby weight for the rest of her days, and she actually ends up having a loving relationship with food, so to speak. When her and Daemon take King's Landing, Daemon still spends his nights with Mysaria, even though they're married, and Rhaenyra says, let the prince slick his lusts where he likes, I'll eat these lamprey pies, and she just gets, really big. So just to clarify, it's very clear that Rhaenyra doesn't want Alicent to see her weakness, like the scar that Alicent caused on her wrist, and the fact that Rhaenyra wasn't able to bounce right back after having those babies. And then another thing you may not have noticed, or you may have, is when Luke and Jace go to the courtyard, we see Eric and Arik Cargill, right? These infamous twins, Kingsguardsmen, who end up killing each other in a duel. They're actually fighting in probably a very similar duel. So, according to one version, basically what happens is, after Blood and Cheese, which is going to be something that we'll probably be judging on this rate in Season 2, basically after Lucerys is killed by Aemon, Daemon ends up sending Blood and Cheese in to go and kill Aegon's children, and they end up killing Jaehaerys, his heir, right? And then they sneak out. But as a I'm gonna get back at you, Rhaenyra sort of thing, Aegon sends one of the twins, Eric Cargill, over to Dragonstone in the guise of his twin, Arik, because we see Arik is going to be the one kneeling and giving the crown to Rhaenyra, right? So his brother, who's on the sides of the Greens, one of them fights for the Greens, one of them fights for the Blacks, his brother, who's on the sides of the Greens via Aegon II, dons his brother's armor, goes into Dragonstone, makes his way to the royal apartments, and then gets caught by his brother. And they have a duel. And supposedly the duel ended in seconds, where they both mortally wounded each other. But one of the versions of the duel, and it's probably the one the show's going to go with, is Eric kills Arik, and Arik dies immediately, but as he's dying, he grabs out his dagger and stabs Arik, and then he ends up dying 6 days later, groaning horribly of a gut wound. So it takes him a while to die, but he just suffers every last day. So that the two of them fighting behind Luke and Jace in the background is foreshadowing for that duel that's eventually going to happen, probably later on in Season 2. It depends on how many seasons we get for the show. All right, now here's a complaint for you. Where is Daeron the Daring? So the king and the queen have 4 children. They have Aegon II, they also have Helena, then they have Aemon, and then they have Daeron the Daring. And Daeron the Daring, I've talked about him a few times, right? He's supposed to be this amazing individual who's squiring under Hobart Hightower right now. So that could be why we haven't seen him. But also they haven't referenced him, right? But also there hasn't exactly been the opportunity to be like, hey, where's the king's other son, right? So he's the youngest of the 4 children. I believe he's around Lucerys' age. I'm not exactly sure, right? But he ends up showing up later in the battle and wins some amazing victories for the Greens. But we haven't heard about him or seen him on the show, and he may actually be cut. I wonder who they would give his role to, right? So, let me know down below do you think Daeron the Daring has been cut, or do you think he just will be brought up later on in season 2? If I'm not mistaken, we never got a casting leak for anybody cast as Daeron the Daring, right? And then now this is the perfect time, making really good time in this video. I just want to praise Paddy Considine. Go follow this dude on Instagram. I don't believe he has a Twitter, but go follow him on any social media that he has. He deserves the award for everything, right? Like, so Paddy Considine needs to mention that Viserys has a form of leprosy, a Westerosi form of leprosy, and I was like, yeah, this Westerosi form of leprosy is different because it's not affecting everyone around him, like not lepers in historical times who were forced to live in colonies so that they wouldn't spread that disease, right? And I know you can break down the disease and be like, oh, it's in this state where it's not necessarily spreadable, right? But this is all based on what Paddy Considine has said in an interview. So I don't know if it's been officially confirmed through HBO, but when you read A Song of Ice and Fire, you realize there's some crazy diseases that kind of look like what he has. Like his leprosy is a version that eats himself from the inside out. It's why his eye falls out. It's why he's missing fingers. You know, it's why he has all these issues, and he's literally just rotting from the inside out, right? But when you read A Dance with Dragons, and when Tyrion is in the company of initially Illyrio Mopatis, right? And then he finds out, oh, young Griff is this dude who's supposed to be Rhaegar's long-lost heir who died, right? He's supposed to be Aegon who had his head dashed, right? But then Tyrion decides he wants to go to a brothel and ends up getting picked up by Jorah Mormont. Jorah Mormont enslaves him and takes him, or at least is going to take him to go and see Daenerys, right? When this happens, Tyrion ends up getting caught on a ship with Jorah, right? Kind of what happens in the TV show, right? They get caught by slaves, and then Tyrion is sold on an auction block to this dude, Yezan, and he has this, like, wasting disease that he picks up from Sothorios. So, like, Yezan Zonutsack is what I call him. He does have the pale mare. He gets that. But before he gets that, he's already dying from this weird disease that's eating him from the inside out. It makes him smell like pee, makes him smell awful, makes him smell like death. Whatever that disease he has, Yezan, who's this slave master, right, who owns Tyrion and Penny and Jorah, right, he has this crazy disease, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Maybe Viserys picked up something from Balerion, right? Balerion the Black Dread when he rode him in his youth. So Balerion could have gotten some sort of disease when he was ridden by Arya to the basically, it's not exactly said where they go, right? And I've talked about this a bunch of times. I even talked about this in the last night's live stream. But basically, Balerion is claimed by Arya, this emo teenager, and they disappear for a year. And when they come back, Arya is suffering from this crazy, like, illness that's making her burn from the inside out. And we later find out from the Maesters that she had these fireworms inside of her that cooked her organs, and they have faces of humans on them. And then you hear that the Rhoynar has these little worms in the river that when you drink the water, they sort of do that same thing. So that's probably what happened to my Nymeria. That's probably what happened to Arya. She drank from the river Rhoynar thinking the water was clean and got those fireworms in her body. And her and Drogon were likely attacked by a wild wyvern, or why do I keep saying Drogon? It's Balerion, the Black Dread, right? But they were probably attacked, and then Balerion ended up having this long gash along his side, and this is when he got that disease that he probably passed to Viserys. And Viserys is the only one that has it because Viserys is the last rider of Balerion. But back on track here. Paddy, you deserve all of the awards, my dude. Like, I have never been that sad watching a character die on screen, aside from, like, Daenerys. And, like, Daenerys, I spent way more time with. In Paddy and Viserys, I've only spent 8 episodes with. So that just shows you how amazing of a performance he's done. All right, now the last couple of points that I want to mention for this video, we did get a sweeping shot of Dragonstone. Looked amazing, looked incredible, but no gargoyles on the crenellations. Dragonstone is very much something like Castle Dracula in hell. It's kind of how it's described in the books, and every single crenellation has different gargoyles that are snarling. There's dragons everywhere. The architecture itself is twisted, and they obviously had to keep it very similar to how it looked on the main series. So that's why there were no gargoyles on the crenellations. And then Vaemon getting his head cut off. Technically, when they're on Driftmark, Vaemon is making those claims, and then in the books, Rhaenyra dispatches Daemon to go and cut off his head, very much like what happened on the TV show, except for it doesn't happen in front of the king, in front of the Iron Throne in King's Landing. It happens, Daemon just cuts his head off and then feeds the body of Vaemon Velaryon to Rhaenyra's dragon, Syrax. And the TV show made it way better, right? We got this, like, crazy scene where Vaemon just won't stop talking shit, and he gets what's coming to him. And he does have his tongue left out. And that was a precise cut by Daemon, because he literally says afterwards, you can keep your tongue. That was like one of my favorite scenes in the entirety of this series. And then also we got a line from the books, like when Aemon sees that Lucerys is laughing at him because of the pig joke and, you know, the pink dread. He ends up doing that line from the books where he says, toast to my 3 strong nephews. And then also with this dinner, right? Before that, we have Jacaerys and Helena, who were initially propositioned to be married by Rhaenyra in the last episode. We see them dancing, and we see how the realm could have been, because that's how you tie the 2 houses together. That's how you do that. The 2 of them dancing, they would have been a perfect match. That is what the realm could have been. But that's not what happens, and that was just tragic. And the dancing between them was just symbolism of like what the dance could have been, and instead it turns out to be this tragic dance of dragons. And then the last thing that I want to mention for this video, right? Remember, I broke the episode down an hour and a half last night in my live stream. It's linked down below in the description. Please go watch it. Even though YouTube demonetized it, consider joining my Patreon. Is the stare down between Aemon and Daemon. This is when Daemon realizes that the only threat of the Greens is this little boy, Aemon. He realizes he's a badass warrior. Daemon accepts in that moment that this is the guy worth dying to take out, because he is the ultimate threat. And that has set up the battle above the God's Eye. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please do me a massive favor and slap a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 420. Consider checking out my Patreon over on patreon.com/HuntReviews. It's just a way to get extra content and also to support me, because like I said, my videos are just randomly being demonetized here on YouTube. And then also subscribe and turn your notifications on. That way you'll get an alert every single time I drop a video throughout the Wait for House of the Dragon, coming up now, season 2, or as it's known on this channel, the Long Night Ixos Daor.
Zadrizes Buzdaris Gosdaur.
Now, before I jump into the contents of this video, anything you think I didn't mention, because this is much shorter than my normal episode breakdowns, check out my live stream that I did last night. That one was 2 hours long, and I cover everything that happened in the episode in that live stream. So that's why, 1, this video is shorter, and 2, I'm mentioning this right now because I'm pretty sure there's some stuff that I didn't talk about in this video that people want my opinion on, and that's going to be found in the live stream. Link down below in the description if you want to go watch that. Okay, so historically, episode 9 for Game of Thrones was always the craziest, most insane episode. So in season 1, episode 9, Ned Stark died. And then in season 2 of Game of Thrones, we had the Battle of Blackwater in episode 9. And then my favorite, episode 9 ever, in Game of Thrones season 3, we had the Reigns of Castamere. Now, in House of the Dragon episode 9, we had something that broke canon and kind of sent the internet through an uproar. I'm, of course, referring to the beast beneath the boards that is Rhaenys. Rhaenys kind of pulled a bit of a Daenerys in season 8 and murdered a bunch of innocent people to kind of prove a point. But the one group of people she should have actually killed, she didn't. So in this video, I'm going to break down several different things that you may or may not have noticed in House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 9. Now, before I jump into any of that, please do me a massive favor if you enjoy my content by slapping a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 420. And then also, if you enjoy my content and you've already slapped a like on it, make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications all the way on. So that way you'll get an alert for the up-and-coming Long Night, or the wait for House of the Dragon Season 2, which will not be coming out until 2024 at the earliest. So for the next year, if you enjoy my content now, it's just going to get better and better, because I'm going to pretty much keep a similar upload schedule throughout the wait for House of the Dragon Season 2, or the Jon Snow show, or what I'm most excited for, Winds of Winter. The wait for that here on this channel is known as the Long Night. And if you don't believe me about the whole uploading thing, well, when Game of Thrones Season 8 went off, I never stopped uploading and uploaded consistently for 2 years, no show, 3 to 4 videos a week. Thank you for subscribing and thank you for watching. Also, consider checking out my Patreon if you want to take it a step further. A lot of my live streams, a lot of my videos get demonetized here on YouTube. It's part of this long-lasting shadow ban that was put on a lot of the Game of Thrones Season 8 channels from the backlash and all that stuff. So basically, my Patreon is a source or a platform where you can get an unadulterated version of my podcast. Whatever gets uploaded there will never see the light of YouTube, so you can join for as little as a couple of bucks, and that's something that, you know, is there for anybody who wants some extra content. But like I said, thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing, and thank you for liking if you've done that. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the dragon in the room, so to speak. Aegon was crowned. Aegon was crowned by Criston Cole, canon. Aegon was kind of wearing a greenish black suit. Not necessarily canon. A lot of the Targaryens did wear black, but Aegon traditionally, you know, he had the banner behind him, which is really cool. He had the golden dragon on the black field. That's the banner that he has, right? The crown was big and bulky. It's very clear that Aegon is a young man, and Aegon the Conqueror, when that crown was made, was a grown man. And you know, a crown should really never sit comfortably on a king's head, just like how a king should never sit comfortably in a throne. It just, you know, makes you unaware of the burden that you carry if you're comfortable all the time. Aegon the Conqueror thought this, and so does Daenerys. Daenerys thinks this in A Dance with Dragons. She realizes that she has to sit all day and sort of deliberate and, you know, play politician as Queen of Meereen, and she mentions how, you know, a queen should never sit comfortably. The episode would have had no backlash at all if it ended with Aegon being crowned and raising his sword and realizing, oh crap, this is serious. I never wanted this, but I didn't realize what it meant. I thought it meant all of this responsibility and duty, but ultimately Aegon too realizes that now that he's wearing this crown and holding this sword, they have to respect him, which is something that he's always wanted. He's always died for the admiration of his mother. He says, Mom, do you like me? He's like, Viserys, you know, my dad never made me king for 20 years, and it's because he didn't like me. This dude is like, you know, he's a bit of an emo rapey king, but like it kind of everything about his role and who he's going to turn into. This was episode 9 perfectly set that up for the average show watcher who may not have read Fire and Blood, right? So if the episode had ended right there and maybe we just got a shot of Melees flying off in the distance to go and warn the Blacks, would have been perfect. But they broke canon. Rhaenys was not supposed to be in King's Landing. She's on Driftmark. When the war breaks out, it's, you know, sort of crucial. Rhaenyra is able to gather all of her pieces because the Greens have had a weak advantage. So Rhaenys is on Driftmark and then flies over to Dragonstone. And then we have the Black Council. Rhaenys is a part of that, right? She's wearing her bronze-scaled armor. Now, she's going to still be there, but because they decided to break canon and keep Rhaenys in King's Landing because they did the Vaemon Velaryon plot last episode, because they did that, they had to come up with a creative way to get her out of the city. So the writers intentionally or unintentionally sort of wrote themselves into a corner, and it created this massive spectacle scene. Now, here's the thing. It looked amazing. The way that the smoke is just sort of fading off of Rhaenys' face, and then it's revealed like, oh, this is who it is. This is Melees and Rhaenys, right? That was stunning, right? It was also really cool how calm Rhaenys was on top of Melees' saddle, even though Melees is, you know, killing innocent people and destroying the dragon pit, and she just broke up through the ceiling kind of thing. And like the situation is intense because the doors are closing, right? But let me backtrack a bit. It was amazing to watch, but in breaking canon, you kind of forgot the rules that the show set up. Innocent people shouldn't be murdered. Like Rhaenys channeled Daenerys in Game of Thrones Season 8. She kind of killed innocent people. Like, I'm a massive Daenerys fan, and don't get me wrong when I say that, but I'm just saying, those innocent people who were corralled into the dragon pit, Rhaenys was just walking with them. It doesn't make much sense. This is one of the things that was critiqued heavily with Game of Thrones, is when you break canon, you have to do something to make up for that, and a lot of the times writers will go for the spectacle. But when you sort of just, remove the fact that this is a TV show, innocent people are going to die. Targaryens are dragons incarnate, and none of them are going to do 100% good things, right? So Rhaenys shouldn't have killed the innocent, but what we got to see was pretty awesome. We got to see Melee's up close for like almost an entire 2 minutes on screen. We got to see how colorful she is. We got to see how badass Rhaenys was. And here's the thing. Yes, it was a girl boss moment, but it was still really cool to watch. And let's face it, this is a TV show. So sometimes they have to take risks and sometimes they pay off, like how amazing this was to watch. But also it sort of doesn't make Rhaenys as innocent as she initially was because she killed innocent people. But also to remove my perspective as a book reader and just if I was just watching the show and had never read Fire and Blood or, World of Ice and Fire, any of these Song of Ice and Fire books, I would have honestly thought this scene was amazing. I wouldn't have even questioned the choice in it. I would have just assumed that it was in the source material because we have had several other individuals escaping through King's Landing in the many seasons of Game of Thrones, so it kind of just seems like a repeated thematic element. I don't know. You all let me know what you think about this scene down below in the comment section. I personally loved it, although I do have, a lot of critique about it. This was one of the most critiqued scenes, in my opinion, from me, like while I was watching. Okay, the next thing that I want to sort of mention is, and this was confusing, okay, the plot with Sir Otto to sort of kill Aegon II and place Aemon on the throne, right? So he sends Eric and Ark Cargill to go and retrieve Aegon, who we find out Aegon in the last episode in his whole life, he's this drunken dude. And then we also find out that he spends a lot of his time in this fight club for kids in which his bastards are used in that fight club and he doesn't care about them. That's not really shocking because Aegon II is, not the best dude. So of course he's not going to give a crap about his bastard kids, right? The kid that we saw may potentially be Game and Pale here. So when we find this out, Otto, sort of plots with Mysaria to... What I got from the situation, I've watched the episode 3 times now. What I got from the situation is that Sir Otto is trying to leverage Mysaria to tell her where Aegon is, and Mysaria will only do it if Sir Otto agrees to remove Aegon from the picture. So Sir Eric tells Aegon II, your grandfather's waiting for you outside the city. He fights that because he knows, no, Sir Otto is going to kill me. Aegon tries to plead with Aemon when they're fighting each other. Like, Aemon tells him, you're going to be crowned. And Aegon's like, no, I don't want to do this. I'll leave. You'll never see me again, right? Like, that is what I got from the conversations that they had. And then we have Larry's who destroyed Mysaria's whorehouse, and we saw just a small glimpse of that burning, and we saw this dude with his face sort of darkened out, and he's probably a Firefly man. The dude who Larry's hired from the dungeons of King's Landing, had their tongues removed and sent them to go and kill his father and his brother in Harrenhal. Now, aside from not seeing Sunfire, the coronation went almost exactly how it did in the books, right? We have Cole crowning Aegon II in the Dragon Pit with 40,000 spectators, but the one thing that was missing was Sunfire. Right? Now, we've all watched the episode 10 promo. Everybody watching this video, I know you've already seen it. We know that the next episode is going to have a big dragon battle, the Battle above Storm's End, in which Luke and Arax face off against Aemon and Vhagar, right? So that's why we didn't get to see Sunfire this episode, but technically the one big thing that was missing, aside from Aegon rocking the black on gold dragon, right? Or the gold dragon on a black field on his chest, but he did have the banner behind him, right? There was a few more rubies that should have been in the Conqueror's crown, but the other thing, like I said, was that he should have ridden his dragon around the city a few times, and he didn't. But one of the things that I noticed, and this was really cool, is we do have some dialogue, some lines pulled straight from the books, but Aemon mentions Yeti, so that was cool. Yeti exists on this show, and he mentions that to Kristen Cole when they're walking the streets of King's Landing looking for Aegon. The fight scene that Aemon and Cole have with the 2 Cargill twins was awesome. I actually got to see footage of that, and anybody that was watching my videos last summer got to see footage of them filming that outside, and it looked really cool because that was the first time we got to see Aemon as Ewan Mitchell fighting, and it was dope. Now, 2 things that were really subtle that you may or may not have missed. The first one is that when Alicent asks Cole to go and retrieve Aegon, to have him crowned, and Aemon goes with him, she says, do it for the love of me sort of situation. And it's kind of insinuating that Cole has an obsession with Alicent. And then along the same vein of things, we also have when Cole took Aemon to the Street of Silk, and Aemon mentions how Aegon took him there when he was 13, and Aegon wanted Aemon to know everything he did about women, right? Right after Cole walks away, the woman says, look how much you've grown. So if I'm not mistaken, that woman, that whore who they were interviewing, who Cole and Aemon were interviewing, is who Aemon lost his virginity to. And the fact that he's no longer interested in her, and he sort of has this attitude of like, I don't really need pussy right now, lets me know that it's going to be awesome when he finally does get some from Alice Rivers. She locks him down. He doesn't want to leave her side at all. And this is setting that up perfectly. It's like he thinks he's too good to get some ass, but then eventually when he does, he turns into this pea-whipped little boy. You know what I mean? It's hilarious. I mean, the other elephant in the room, the elephant's foot, so to speak, is the fact that Alicent allows Larrys to jerk off while looking at her perfectly clean feet. Now, obviously, the show's probably going to get some backlash for that, but I thought it was hilarious. I literally could not believe what I was watching when it was coming on the screen. But one thing I noticed is that this foot thing may have actually been going on for a while, because in the last episode, Alicent kind of looks like she's tucking away her feet, and you sort of see the way that when they're on their way to Driftmark in the episode before that, right, in episode 7, remember, we have Larry staring at Alicent for a very long period of time, and Cole comes over and tells her that. So this relationship of showing feet for information has been going on for a while. That may not have been something that you may or may not have noticed. This is not the first time this has happened. It's been going on for years. Now, if you'll notice, when the Cargill twins are walking the streets, they start to get followed by this curly-haired individual who we find out is working for Mysaria, and they ultimately lead Sir Otto to meet with Mysaria via Eric and Art Cargill, right? So that street worker could potentially be Nettles, right? It's probably not, but I just thought it was very interesting that she looks very similar to how Nettles is described, minus the fact that Nettles has a slit nose and also spends most of her time on Dragonstone. So if you're unaware, Nettles is this character who's brought in when the war jumps out, so this will be in season 2 most likely, right? This is after Lucerys dies. Rhaenyra and Jace and Mushroom and Corlys all decide that the best thing they can do is get more dragons, more dragon riders. So they have this thing called the Calling of the Dragon Seeds, where anybody who may potentially have blood of the dragon can come and try to claim a dragon and fight for the sides of the blacks. When that happens, a bunch of individuals try to claim dragons and a bunch of people get hurt, but one of them, Nettles, is able to successfully tame the dragon Sheep Stealer by feeding it sheep every day until the dragon became accustomed to her presence, and then she eventually mounted it and joined the sides of the blacks. Now, what's interesting is that this character's backstory doesn't exactly fit Nettles' backstory, but when you realize Daemon would slit the nose of pickpockets, maybe he did that to Nettles, and she wanted to flee away from the city, went to Dragonstone, and that's why Daemon ends up falling in love with her, because he initially saw her as this pickpocket that worked for Mysaria. Who knows? You all let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I don't really think that was Nettles. I think that was just someone who worked for Mysaria. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you think this video is kind of short, because normally they are a bit longer, well then check out my live stream. I've did 2 hours on this episode last night, and anything I didn't mention in this video was mentioned in depth there. It's linked down below in the description. Now, that video has been demonetized, so obviously there's nothing I can do about that, but just consider checking out my Patreon over on patreon.com/HuntsReviews, and you get exclusive content that I only upload there. Thank you all for watching, and please consider slapping a like on this video and subscribing. Like goal is going to be 420. Special thank you to every single person for watching, and a special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/HuntsReviews. Along natin sa Altrizas Pustari Ixos Daor. Episode 10 looks crazy, and the finale's coming up, so please make sure you're subscribed so that you have guaranteed entertainment throughout the wait for season 2, or as it's known on this channel, The Long Night. Okay, so in this video, this is the last one for Season 1. This is a finale breakdown for House of the Dragon Season 1. Please, do me a massive favor, and if you enjoy my content, well then do yourself a massive favor. House of the Dragon Season 2 will not be out till 2024, and it is my well, I've done it before. I'll just keep doing it, right? I'm going to entertain you throughout that wait for House of the Dragon Season 2, or as it's known on this channel, The Long Night. And also, consider checking out my Patreon, which is a way for me to combat YouTube delisting, shadow banning, and demonetizing my channel. If you don't believe me, go to YouTube, type in House of the Dragon, and you'll see none of my videos show up, even though they're getting views, likes, and interactions, right? So what I've done is I've just created a Patreon where I release a podcast called Leaks of Lore, and I talk about literally anything in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Right now, it's mostly lore because the leaks haven't started yet. They haven't started filming Season 2, but just go ahead and join that for a couple of bucks. Only if you really enjoy my content here on YouTube. All right, so if you're unaware, these videos that I do, breaking down each one of the episodes, are more so things you missed. My live stream that I'm doing right now, right as you're watching this, or if not, just go to my YouTube channel, click on videos, and you'll see I live streamed. Those breakdowns, or those live streams, are where I break down most of the scenes from the episode, as well as interact with every single person watching. So please go and check that out as well if you want something that you want discussed that you think I didn't mention in this video. It's probably mentioned in that live stream. But this is going to be, 7 or 8 things that you may or may not have noticed from House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 10, or the finale. Storm's End looked amazing. Like, I don't know if I could have imagined it any better myself. Like, I've read A Song of Ice and Fire. I know this is the home of House Baratheon, but not initially. Like, see, it's a bit of a backstory for Storm's End. It's called Storm's End because that's where the storms finally ended. So initially, the Stormlands were ruled by this House Durrandon, who eventually becomes replaced by House Baratheon during Aegon's conquest. And Orys Baratheon, the dude that Aegon the Conqueror instills in the new seat of power in Storm's End, is rumored to be a bastard brother of Aegon the Conqueror himself. So all of that aside, basically, one of the ruling members of House Durrandon took the daughter of the Storm God to wife. The Storm God got pissed off at this and kept sending storms and hurricanes and tornadoes and all that good shit to go and destroy every single castle he laid his head at to rest. Eventually, he built so many castles, he's like, that's it. I'm going to build this one called Durin's Defiance. I am so sick of being wiped out by the Storm God just because I impregnated his freaking beautiful daughter. So, he builds Storm's End, and that defies the gods. That's why Storm's End looks so amazing. That's why it got its name. So, House Durrandon is eventually replaced by House Baratheon. Speaking of House Baratheon, this dude they had playing Boros, oh my god, I don't even know this actor's name, but he looks just like a younger version of Robert Baratheon on the TV show, played by Mark Addy. That was amazing, dude. Like, yeah, he was a bit of a dickish, but it was perfect. I could not have imagined a better Baratheon. Like, he just looked like literally a younger version of Mark Addy. Not necessarily Robert Baratheon in his prime, because he is the, basically this like Roman god statue, right? And he becomes fat over time, but holy crap, Boros, you killed it, dude. That was such an amazing scene. It was so I love Aemon's anime aesthetic. His costume was amazing. Lucerys, his cloak, awesome, dope as hell. Both of their swords looked amazing, but Boros stole that scene. He stole it like he's the storm, It's amazing to see a Baratheon book accurate on screen. I loved it. I loved the entire layout of Storm's End Castle as well. It's amazing that you can tell by a mile, the episodes that Ryan Condal writes and directors like Greg Yantis and Claire Kilner are responsible for. Ryan Condal knows this story inside and out. It's amazing what he gave us on screen. If you all agree with me, let me know down below. Were you that excited as I was to see a ancestor of Bobby B and finally Storm's End? And I think the best thing about this whole scene is no matter how cocky he is, he can't read. He has to summon the Maester to read this letter. It's actually mentioned in Fire and Blood, Boros was not a man of letters. That's so crazy that you have all this power, but you didn't think, let me learn how to read a book. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is obviously the fight scene between Lucerys and Aemond, and how the entire theme of the episode, and also in the books, and also like for this TV show specifically, Viserys mentions how dragons are a power that should never have been trifled with, right? How to control your dragon. Well, apparently, even if you've been riding your dragon for a decade, it don't matter. You are never going to be able to A dragon is not a slave. They are as smart or smarter than humans. So this fight scene between Lucerys and Aemond went utterly perfect. Aemond is a bastard. goes on to do evil deeds, but no one just does that for no reason. Like, yes, he was bullied his entire life. Yes, that is why he was a dick to his nephews, but ultimately, it makes the most sense. Aemon was just trying to scare Lucerys and Arrax. And obviously Vhagar kind of knew that, but ultimately when Arrax blasted that gout of flame at the old hoary bitch's face, she said, "It's on. I'm going to shred you, and you're going to go into my teeth like you're a piece of paper." Now here's the thing. Before we get too carried away, we didn't actually get a super close-up on the shredding of... Oh my god, I can't believe I'm even joking about it. What? The Lucerys and Arrax, we didn't get a close-up. We know Arrax is dead as hell, but there's a potential possibility that Lucerys could fall into the ocean, forget who he was because he smacks his head, and then ultimately lives his life as a fisherman, like what happens in the books. But that's probably not the case. Aemon's look of terrifyingness, he was so scared. He didn't realize how much power he had, or how much power and how little control Vhagar has over him, right? You're just a flea on her back. She could kick you off at any time. That bond that she made with you is a thing, and yes, it is real, but ultimately, a dragon is not a slave. This show is so awesome. It's only possible to get something like this message from the books, if you've read A Song of Ice and Fire multiple times. Multiple times. Like, yeah. People think, oh, on the TV show, Daenerys is controlling 3 dragons. Not really. Not really at all. Like, they are bonded with Drogon. Drogon is bonded with her. Ultimately, Daenerys has raised 3 eggs in tradition where Targaryens would only raise 1. But she's not riding Rhaegal or Viserion. And it is very clear in A Dance with Dragons, when we have the dragon taming scene with Quentyn Martell and he wants to steal Viserion, those 2 dragons, Viserion and Rhaegal, have a mind of their own, and they start lashing out and burning everyone. And this is how Quentyn ultimately dies. But you realize that it is possible, if someone with the blood of the dragon were to claim one of Daenerys' dragons, they could totally use it to fight her. That idea is literally mentioned in A Dance with Dragons, in Daenerys' POV and in Barristan Selmy's POV. The idea of if one of Daenerys' enemies gets a hold of one of her dragons, they would unleash war and havoc. Right? It would literally be A Dance of Dragons 2.0. So this show is so amazing, and I know it sounds like I'm jacking off while I'm doing this, but I just love everything Ryan Condal has contributed to this show. In my opinion, he's the only person that needs to write every single episode of this series. He has George's vision and is bringing it to the screen. I love this episode so much. I had to call my mom in prison and tell her about it, and I hadn't talked to her in a while. She was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" So am I mad that the Dance of the Dragons is started by an accident? No, I absolutely love it. There was a blank in the story in Fire and Blood. George literally says, Aegon III's egg doesn't hatch. That is seen as a sign of, the Greens love that. And then literally on the faithful day in 129 AC, in the 3rd moon of the 3rd, that's when Viserys dies and then the war breaks out. There was no Viserys has dementia. Viserys confuses Alicent for Rhaenyra. That's all perfect. That's added to the show. It gives it context. This is why the war started. We saw at that dinner in episode 8, everybody was straight. Everybody was on the same plate. Viserys brought everyone together. Not only did he mount the Iron Throne that day, but he mounted his family. He let his family, well, he does end up fucking a lot of members of his family, but he totally brought them under wrap. They were ready to make Rhaenyra the heir. The thing that caused the war to break out is a giant mistake. It's an accident, and that is so much more believable than anything else ever. I love this show. All right, now I feel like I have to move on past this point, or I won't talk about enough in this video, right? We're at 8 minutes, and I've only talked about 2 things. Let's talk about the big thing, okay? Now, I actually liked this scene. I didn't want it to happen, but I know Daemon and Rhaenyra, once the war breaks out, must have a wedge driven in between them, because otherwise, why would Daemon cheat on Rhaenyra and start sleeping with Nettles? Or better yet, why would Daemon start cheating on Rhaenyra as soon as Rhaenyra takes King's Landing and Rhaenyra allows that to happen? Abuse. You turn a blind eye when you've been abused. Like, dude, Daemon literally choked the bitch. But I as soon as he put his hands on Rhaenyra's throat, I'm like, bro, what are you doing? what are you doing? I paused the screen. I turned my head to the right and to the left, and I'm like, oh my God. And then literally when I unpaused it, I gripped my throat for the rest of the scene. Damon, I smacked at you if I seen you, bro. Don't put your hands on a motherfucking princess. Queen, for that matter. What are you thinking? But that's intentional. I'm supposed to feel that way. I'm supposed to be hating Damon in that moment. And guess what? Ryan Kondo, Greg Yantis, and everyone who's responsible for this episode, I genuinely hated Damon in that moment. Obviously, that changes, and it's going to change. But ultimately, that's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to feel for Rhaenyra's side. And this makes the most sense in canon why Rhaenyra allows Daemon to do his own thing. She doesn't want to wake the dragon, right? You remember Viserys on the TV show, Daenerys' brother? He smacks the crap out of her, chokes her out. He pushes her down when she's pregnant. That is how Targaryens are in general, okay? So Viserys kept warning Daenerys, don't wake the dragon. Daemon is a dragon. Rhaenyra woke the dragon. And no, I am not in support of that, but that just shows you that Targaryens are not ones to be 100% fans of. Everybody in this story does wrong things. Don't be a goddamn fool and support one person blindly. Be like me and support everybody by also supporting no fucking body, right? Okay, so now for my first complaint. Initially, when I uploaded my reaction, when the episode leaked on my Patreon, over on patreon.com/yourhuntsreviews, you can go join that for like $2 and go listen to all of the mini episodes of my podcast, Leaks and Lore, that have been uploaded. There's at least 10 episodes, and most of them are around 15 to 20 minutes, and that's content that's never seen YouTube. Okay, so I kind of tricked you. I lied to you. It's not really a complaint. It was initially when I first watched that episode, in my reaction that I posted to Patreon, I had a complaint about the dialogue on the bridge scene because it seemed very modern. They kept using the F word. Damon said, what is this? Rhaenyra, when she took the handed the kingpin off of Sir Otto and threw it, and she said, you're a fucking traitor, right? That modernness in the dialogue took me out of the scene initially. But then, now that I've rewatched the episode, that's actually my favorite scene. It's a callback to the second episode. It's amazing. Like, yes, they curse a lot, but the amount of passion and rage that the actors have on their face, their features, their body movements, their language, like, all that stuff, it's amazing. Like, I still think that the modern curse words and all that stuff, and like, they use curse words in Game of Thrones, right? But it just seemed a little bit more modern, and like, that moment was for sure fan service, but I ain't mad at them for giving it to us. Okay, my favorite moment of the episode, one of my favorite moments, obviously, aside from Storm's End, the fight there, and then, Daemon and Rhaenyra, and Daemon soothing Vermithor, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Jacaerys, buddy, is going to Winterfell, and winter is coming, and the dead come with it. Now, Rhaenyra mentions to Jace that Cregan Stark, who is the new lord of Winterfell, he got into a fight, in Fire and Blood, he gets into a fight with his uncle Bernard, who is basically ruling the North, and he's the Lord of Winterfell, but in Cregan's name. So Cregan is young, and he hasn't really become a man yet, so his uncle Bernard is taking care of the affairs of the North. But then when Cregan does come of age, he ends up having to imprison his uncle Bernard for not, relinquishing power to Cregan, right? So Cregan has assumed power. He's the Lord of Winterfell. He's known as the Old Man of the North. He actually outlives everybody in the dance. He lives for a really long time. We don't exactly know how his journey ends in Fire and Blood Part 1 because he's still alive. And he lives for a very long time. Like, he ends up becoming the Old Man of the North. But all of that's besides the point. When Jacaerys gets there in Season 2, we're going to get to see Vermax in Winterfell, a dragon in Winterfell. They're going to go hunting. I wouldn't be surprised if Sarah Snow rides on Jacaerys' dragon. That would be amazing. There's something called the Pact of Ice and Fire that is supposedly supposed to happen because Jacaerys sleeps with Sarah Snow, but they get married in the Godswood, right? With Cregan's blessing. So it's kind of like there's some rumors that apparently Sarah Snow slept with Jacaerys. Cregan found out and becomes pissed at Jacaerys and forces them to marry. But it's probably, I just cannot wait to see. It's going to be so cool because she also mentioned we may potentially see White Harbor and the Manderly, who becomes Hand of the King for Aegon III after Cregan, right? We may potentially see that dude in White Harbor. But ultimately, I cannot wait to see the Lady of the Vale's pussy. And when Jace is eating her snatch, he's got to eat her box to bring the Veil of Aaron Aaron to the side of the blacks, and I hope they show Coochie. I want to see it on that weird Weirwood throne, bringing back flashbacks of Liza Aaron, except for there's a hotter version of her, and she's getting her pussy out. Supposedly, according to Mushroom's version in Fire and Blood, Jacaerys has to bring her to climax with his tongue in order for the Veil of Aaron to join Rhaenyra's side. Now, Rhaenyra isn't Aaron on her mother's side, but this is just something that was added in. That's a salacious claim that I really want to see on screen. Okay, now the last two things I want to talk about this video. Remember, check out my breakdown, link down below in the description, where I was live, and I'm probably live still right now if I can finish this video in time. And also, I discuss pretty much everything that happens in that episode. So yeah, check that link down below in the description, or just go look for my YouTube channel. But yeah, let me go backtracking a bit. Potentially, you all let me know who you would cast as Cregan Stark down below in the comment section, but I actually have two choices. One of them, Matthew Lewis. And if that name sounds familiar, well, that's Neville freaking Longbottom from Harry Potter. I know. In his Harry Potter days, he did not look like Cregan Stark, but now, if you look at him from 2022 or 2020, he actually looks like he'd be a decent version of Cregan Stark. It'd be really cool as a subtle, like Harry Potter fans would be like, oh my god, that's Neville freaking Longbottom. But most people probably wouldn't recognize him for how different he looks now. But if they wanted to cast someone a little bit smaller, I would say this dude Jamie Blackley from If I Stay. And I've never really seen him in anything. I just looked up young English actors, and this dude popped up, and he's got black hair, and I thought, oh, Cregan Stark. But moving on here, the last two things for this video. Daemon was soothing Vermithor. Vermithor is Jaehaerys' mount. Jaehaerys is the old king's mount. And there were people that were thinking Daemon is going to claim a dragon. No, Daemon is literally just pulling a census on the dragons and trying to figure out how many they have. And also he wants to know, I am your friend. Anybody who's not with me or, doesn't look like me is your enemy. So make sure, Old King Mount Vermithor, make sure you're paying attention. And that song that Daemon is singing is probably something that Jaehaerys used to sing to Vermithor. And if we ever get like an Old King's Reign show, maybe for one season or something in House of the Dragon, it'd be awesome to see Jaehaerys singing that same song to Vermithor. And you got to realize Jaehaerys is Daemon's grandfather, so Daemon probably learned that song from Jaehaerys himself, so that was just really awesome. But if you're wondering who eventually does mount Vermithor, because Vermithor takes place in the Battle of the Gullet and then eventually turns sides and fights for the Green, the rider for Vermithor for this series is this dude named Hugh Hammer. He's a bastard dragon seed. I personally think, and I don't know if anybody else does, let me know down below, I personally think it just makes the most sense for Hugh Hammer, judging by his age and the fact that he's easily able to claim Vermithor. It just says literally Hugh Hammer was allowed to mount Vermithor. He didn't have to, play tricks on it and feed it food or anything like Sheepstealer and Nettles, right? He literally just claimed it. He's probably a bastard of Jaehaerys. Like, Hugh Hammer is probably a bastard of Jaehaerys from when Jaehaerys and Alysanne have multiple fallen outs. Jaehaerys supposedly slept with Alicent, King Viserys' wife, before he died, and he would confuse them for his daughter Sarah. So it's possible that Jaehaerys was sleeping around on Alicent, and that's one of the things that's not necessarily mentioned in Fire and Blood, and Hugh Hammer is one of his bastards. Now, who would I cast for this dude? One person, Jack O'Connell from the movie Unbroken. This dude fits Hugh Hammer in every single instance of the phrase. And also, he kind of looks like the other Targaryen family members, but also mixed with someone else. Like, he could potentially be a bastard. And Hugh Hammer, Jack O'Connell, I think, would be a good one. The last thing I want to talk about is the crazy pregnancy scene, Rhaenyra's baby. It did have slight draconian scales, but that was nuts to have to watch her go through that. And then the pain and the anxiety and all the fear that is shown on her face in the last scene of this episode literally channels all that. War's begun, and it's about to start. Now, in the books, Mushroom carries the baby out to burn it, and he mentions that it's got draconian scales, and we actually do kind of see those in the TV show. That was one of the most tragic events of this series. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could, please slap a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 420. And then also, make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications on. If you watched this video this far, you probably like my stuff. So just go ahead and subscribe, and you have guaranteed content throughout the wait for Season 2, or as it's known on this channel, The Long Night. I want to thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews, and I want to thank you for watching. A long night, Zaldrizas Pusdari, Ixos Daor.